our joint meeting.
I'm so sorry, Mayor Shaver is called to order the city council meeting.
Sure. I don't really see anybody, and we haven't got any written correspondence, right? So how about roll call, please?
Correct, sir. No written response, no correspondence. Council Agency Authority Member Barrios. Council Agency Authority Member Taylor.
Here.
Council Agency Authority Member Warren. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Vice Chairman Torres.
Here.
And Mayor Chairman Shaver.
Okay, again, I'm going to ask if anybody from the public would like to speak. And again, I'm checking our correspondence. Do we have any?
Mr. Mayor, we have none, and nobody is present to speak this evening.
Okay, moving on. Before we go into closed session, we're going to have a conference with legal counsel for a couple of items. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We have 2 items on closed session today. One is conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, 1 case. The other item is existing litigation, 1 case. It is Tina Pacific Residents Association et al. Versus City of Stanton. Thank you.
Let's go have a chat.
Council will proceed into closed session at 5:33.
Just bring it back.
Regular session at 6:30 p.m.
Okay. Time. Roll call.
Council Agency Authority Member Barrios. Council Agency Authority Member Taylor. Council Agency Authority Member Warren. Mayor Pro Tem Vice Chairman Torres. And Mayor Chairman Shaver.
Here. Do we have anything to report out of closed session?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. There's nothing to report out.
Thank you. Gary, you want to lead us tonight, please? If you'll please all rise for the pledge.
Place your hand over your heart. Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, for which it stands, one nation, under God.
Thank you. Special presentations and awards. We have a sponsor update for our 20247 Siren Express.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to start off with a brief video for the council and members of the audience, and then we'll proceed into the presentation. Just give me one moment, please.
Thank you. Mayor and Council, I'd like to introduce Ann Nguyen, representing the Youth Assistance Foundation, and she'll give a full report of the city's co-sponsorship of the event.
And Anne, if you don't mind, if we could just test the mic real quick. Okay, give me one moment. And once more. One more time. It likes to make me walk all the way down before it works. No, you're okay. Test, test, test.
Oh, very good. Hello. Oh, there you are. Good evening, City Council, Mayor Shover and City Council members, and everybody else in the room. My name is Ann Nguyen. I am part of Sanders Siren of the Youth Assistance Foundation. And next to me is Ronnie, who is one of our amazing volunteers. So we just wanted to talk a little bit about the event that was sponsored by the City of Stanton, and we are very grateful. I just want to mention one thing, and people always ask about this, about, who gave how much, who did how much time, whatever. And honestly, it's not about time, it's not about the amount, it's really about the intention. And so everyone who donated in whatever way they did was amazing, and we find that the biggest gift for us and for this community. We have made lifelong friends in the community. We have friends in the fire department, the police department, and of course the city, and we feel very blessed to do that. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Santa. Santa was going to be here tonight, but Santa has been sick for the whole week. And Santa is amazing. He has lived in Stanton and worked in Stanton for the last 33 years. And Spanish-speaking, amazing bilingual Santa, and he just has the heart of service in this community. And someone asked him at his job, how much do you get paid for doing this? And he said, no, he said, I don't get paid. He said, I love doing this. And he was almost crying when he told the story, because he comes and does the Christmas tree lighting here at the city. He does the Santa Siren, and he's always saying during the year, what can I do? What can I do? He loves it. And you see how much he loves interacting with the families, and whether he can speak to them in Spanish or in English or nothing at all. The kids are so excited to see him because he has that heart of giving, and they know that he's the real deal, the real Santa. So I just wanted to say something about him because he's not here, but he is an amazing community member, and we are so lucky to have him as part of our team. He's been the Santa, I believe, 7 or 8 years, and he's just amazing. And if you get to know him as just in the street, in the community, you would love him. He's got the best smile, and he loves this city. So I feel like we're very lucky, and I'm sorry that he's not here tonight, but I want to pay homage to him for his kindness and the way that he sees this. It's not a job, he just loves it. I can't say any more about that. I asked Ronnie to speak next. She's going to talk about the volunteers, and I'll have her introduce herself as well. Okay, I'll do this.
Good evening. I am Ronnie Rio. I work for Cal State Fullerton's Titans After School program. So we're contracted in the Buena Park School District, and I actually used to work in Garden Grove for 10 years. In the Garden Grove School District as well. I actually serviced, I was at Bryant. So, yeah, exactly. So coming to these events, we started out because our director for our department is a former board member with Ann. And so introduced it because we have to do professional development hours. Well, we used to have to do them prior to this year. And so we would get all of our, our employees to come out and do it. Now, that was something that we had to do before, kind of, now 10 years later, we are all just doing it on our own. So we have a set of volunteers, including myself, and I drag a bunch of other people with me. And also Mayor Dave knows I will come out. We come out to all your events. If anything else you guys need us for the city, we will come out to food drives as well. So the thing is, it's been such a beautiful partnership that we've all stuck around. Like there's about a dozen of us that come every year now. And then also coming back to Garden Grove to be able to help see my students that have grown up now and bringing either their children or, makes my back hurt a little bit more, because I didn't know how I haven't aged at all. And seeing them now that it's seeing children, their children and, or their cousins and little siblings or, it's just a really great partnership. And also our entire department at Cal State Fullerton, now we also brought in our other program to come and volunteer. And now those volunteers are now coming as well. And actually, even with Santa, it's such a small world. Santa's niece actually used to work for our program, too. So it literally, and those are actually, that's my beautiful staff right there. And it's something now that everybody looks forward to every year. Even that Sunday, it's right before Christmas break. We all want to just be done with children for just a little while, a little break. But it's still, everyone will still come out, especially if they ask. We will come out, and also when we do our fundraiser for the fireworks fundraiser, when they do the fire stand. I even have our interns, and because we're also a part of the internship program, they come with us. We also send them over to help out with that as well. So it's literally like a whole full service, but it literally, everyone wants to do it now, not because they have to, because they want to, excuse me. It's been a long day. I've been yelling at kids all day. So, and it is. It's something that we all really love to do. We really love to support. And, I also grew up in the area as well. I'm a Zion, Alamitos, alumni here. So to come back and give, I think that shows. And we're trying to get even the younger kids to come in and do it as well now. So thank you for listening to me. Oh, that's you?
I'm sorry, we just.
These are, all of our, and the partnership, partnership again, thank you, Sheriff.
So again, we're going to go through, and I apologize if I missed somebody, because I know that there are a lot of other people that I've not mentioned, but City of Stanton, BBK, CR&R, Rodeo 39, the Lions Club, Boys and Girls Club of Stanton, Titans After School Program, CF Jumpstart, which is also Cal State Fullerton, OCFA, OCSD, and all our other incredible volunteers, and there are many, many. So of course we have the fire department and our amazing sheriffs, Jorge and Mike have been with us for a long time, and they are just a great pair who love doing this. So we are very thankful to Orange County Sheriff's Department for allowing them. For the fire department, we know that they're on call always, so we are grateful that they come and start the day off, and at the end of the day, end the day off with us, so that Santa gets to ride in luxury at least part of the day. So we're thankful for them. CR&R is, sorry, I'll go back. CR&R, Cliff and Dave Rolenberg, donate the space for toys. They provide a driver. Antonio, the driver there, now lives in Mexico, but he comes back just to drive for us. And he has driven for us for many, many years, is absolutely amazing. And then the gentleman on my right is the artist of the truck, and he and his family come out. They also are Stanton, live in Stanton, work for CR&R, and are an amazing family. David and his children there. Rodeo 39, the last couple of years, have been supporting us. Paul Chi and Austin Ritter are and they always do a toy drive. So it's a way for them to provide the community with a chance to go to Rodeo 39, but also to provide toys for our things. And they're beautiful toys, and Mickey and Minnie always come out and do something. So you can see Santa on the right without costume.
Yeah, that's Santa.
And yeah, so that's a great partnership. And I don't know how they found us, but they're very kind. And then, of course, we have all our amazing volunteers. You heard Angel. Angel spoke, Angel and his daughter. Angel just loved it, and he was so cute with the kids. He was just, Ronnie's volunteers there, Pam, Sarah, people unloading the truck. Again, I can't say enough to thank you on behalf of Youth Assistance for your kindness, for BBK, for the City of Stanton, for the police, the fire, for all the volunteers, for Mr. Shorver, for all the city council members, and for my boss, Xenia, who's a big support for us. We are truly grateful, and we love this program, so thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Lonnie, and thank you guys very much. It seems like every year for this event, that you're always there for us, rain, shine. and I think we had a plethora of toys this year, which was great, and the choice was really awesome. And I know that all the volunteers look forward to already for next year. So on behalf of the entire council, our staff, if you'd please let each and every one of them know we appreciate them, we thank them, and we're looking forward to our continued relationship with them. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, moving on to item number 9, the consent calendar. All of the items on the consent calendar be acted on simultaneously unless somebody would like to pull something. Have we had any requests from the public?
Mr. Mayor, we have none.
Staff or the city?
Mr. Mayor, we also have none and no one in the audience as well.
Is there anyone in the audience who would like to, on the consent calendar item for discussion? Okay. We'll move on then. We have items 9A through 9J. I would like to pull 9I. Is there any others? Go ahead, John.
Can I pull 9G?
9B? D.
Gary.
Can never hear him. Guys, teach him how to speak up, will you, Don? All right, I'll move the balance. Is there a second? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. All right, we'll move. Go ahead, Patricia.
Mayor, you had requested to pull item 9I, which is approval of First Amendment to Agreement for Towing Services. Your questions for staff, sir?
Thank you. I'd like to get an update on this. Caesar, maybe you have the information. We used to rotate among our towing companies. We have several in our city, and in order to be equitable and fair, we used to rotate, like if a car, we give it to one tow, then the next one give it to another, and we'd rotate that, or we would do it monthly or weekly. So could somebody explain to me what's going on with 9I?
So Mayor, this is under the Public Safety Services Department. Director Jim Wren is out sick this evening. So the city went through its normal purchasing and procurement process to hire a qualified contractor to provide the city with towing services. We went through this process in 2021. It was an open RFP for all interested parties. The city reviewed all the submittals turned into the city and recommended Action Southland Towing. I know historically we were having issues with some of our towing partners not accepting tow requests because they sometimes will assign a value to the car that they're called out to tow. And if they don't believe somebody will come to retrieve it, then they don't make money. So we were having problems with customer service. So I do believe that's why we focused in on one, so we could make sure we could manage that better rather than having a rotating cast. So at this time, Action Southland Towing is the city's vendor. They did go through the city's procurement and purchasing process. If in the future the council is interested in having one or more towing services, we can certainly incorporate that into the next RFP process.
The reason I'm bringing this up is that we do have several long-time towing companies in the city. And oftentimes, if you only have one, they may be out working with the sheriff's department on a long tow, or they have all their trucks out. And if we need some opportunity to have some other people come out and take care of the business, I'm not sure if it's prohibited with this contract or not. I also understand the position of the city. Many towers, if they see an old junk beat-up car, they're not going to impound it because they know that the cost of doing the pickup and storage is not going to be able to be made up if they end up with the car. Does the current one up for approval, will they tow everything?
Yes, as far as I know, we've had excellent customer service. Staff would not recommend an amendment if they weren't satisfied, and in this particular instance, staff was greatly satisfied.
Okay, and what is our backup if we don't have them available?
To your point, we are able, in an emergency situation, we can reach out to another towing company if it came to that. I'm not aware of any instances where we haven't been able to receive, it's not that they only have one vehicle to tow, so I'm not aware of any instances where we haven't received the service we expected or that there were some kind of problems.
Okay, so according to this agreement, if we needed to tow 10 cars for whatever the cause is, and we didn't have enough towing service available, with Southland, then we as a city could reach out and get additional help.
With a city contract, the intent is that the city will use that vendor for those city services. They have to go through a process of providing proper insurance certificates and any other requirements that may be associated with a professional services contract. If there were 10 cars in a neighborhood that needed to be towed, I would expect staff would first assess if there was a timeliness issue, that they all had to be towed within the hour for some reason. And if there was, I think they would then reach out. However, if they determined, hey, there's 10 cars to be towed and we can take care of that this afternoon, I think we would use the same vendor who's already been vetted and whose insurance and any other requirements have been properly approved through the city's procurement.
So at this time, we only have one eligible tow company in the city.
This is the city's vendor for these towing services.
Okay, but we only have one, right?
Correct.
Okay, so is staff considered the importance of having a backup?
Again, if we were in an emergency situation and we needed the backup, yes, staff would have the ability to get those services as needed. It has not yet come up where we found ourselves in an emergency situation where we need to have a backup on file. If council is seriously concerned about a backup, again, we can consider that in the next RFP. If council so desires, we can even open an RFP now for a backup vendor. There would not be any guarantee of work. One of the things that you're trying to do to attract these vendors is they want to be the sole source provider to the city after they've gone through this competitive process to make sure that it's profitable for them.
Action Tow will continue to provide services throughout Orange County, and this contract doesn't prohibit them from doing that. So now, is there a priority with the city if they are out among Orange County on calls? Or do they, I mean, in the towing business, it's so easy sometimes not to have somebody available. I just think it's in the best interest of the city to have another towing service as a backup that meets our standards in case for some reason Action Southland can't provide that service. That's all.
Sure. Again, staff did not raise any concerns to my level when they proposed an amendment to the existing contract. If the council is concerned and would like us to issue an RFP for a backup towing company, and it would be very clear that it would only be in the case that the existing preferred provider was not available, we're happy to see that and see if anybody responds to such an RFP.
Okay, that being said, I'd like to make a motion that the city of Stanton have a backup towing service to supplement Southland in case Southland can't provide the service to the city. You know, I think if I assume in this agreement, I haven't read the whole agreement, but I assume that it doesn't prohibit them from their normal course of business. Well, if during the normal course of business, if they have nothing available and we have a situation where we need to have something towed, I think it would be good in the best interest of our community to have something available, a qualified tow company, that's all. Go ahead, Gary. No, we can approve Southland tonight. But my point is let's, if I can get a motion, get it supported, my motion would be very simple. Simply to have the city of Stanton put an RFP out for a secondary tow company that would be available if it necessitates itself, that's all.
Quick question, Hannah. Is this typical for us to have two different entities, I guess, under our RFP to do one service?
There are certain services where we have what we call a stable of consultants on call. So an example of that would be, I know historically for the Community Development Department, we've had on-call planning services. Sometimes we have on-call for Public Works as well. So that's in case we have pre-vetted vendors who've already gone through the city's process, and if a project comes up that has a short timeline, we can go to that pre-vetted list. So I will say this is not unique. There are other situations for certain professional services where we can reach out to a stable of pre-vetted vendors.
And have we worked with this company before, just to clarify?
Yes, we've already been working with this company, I believe, for more than 5 years.
And throughout our time contracting with them, how has their service been?
I'm pretty conservative, and when staff gives me recommendations of outstanding or excellent service, I usually change it to satisfactory. In this case, staff did give an outstanding rating, and I did leave it. So staff has been very pleased with their customer service and their responsiveness and their availability.
Sorry, also, how many applicants have we had for the RFP process?
I would have to go back and reference the records from 2021. I don't know off the top of my head how many applicants. That would be in the staff report that we brought to the council in 2021 for selection. It would have said how many applicants applied or submitted proposals.
Okay. And last question, do we have like any issues with not being able to tow all the cars that are not supposed to be parked where they're parked?
I haven't heard anything from public safety staff as to any issues or concerns.
I mean, I wouldn't be against what you're saying. I just kind of want a little bit more, justification in terms of as to why we should have a backup if the current services are, doing pretty decently by city staff terms.
Well, I'm not asking to do anything with Southland. We used to have 6. And there were 6 of them, and we have 6 in the city. So it's not like we are going out of the city. And the 6 that we've had over the years have all been very responsible. The only time, and even Southland, will turn down a tow in the past is because it's not profitable for them to bring a junker in. I think it would behoove the city to have a backup, just to have that backup if we needed it. For whatever cause. It's always good to have an alternate plan, but if Southland handles everything, then there's no harm, no foul. In other words, we'll just have that in our pocket if we need it. Now, if something comes up and we need to have a tow and we don't have anybody approved, what do? Even though we know that most of these companies have their own insurance and indemnification, they have that in their agreements when they tow. But I still think it's important that we at least have somebody there. We may never use them, but if we ever do, they'll be available to the city. And the way things are today, I have worked with at least 4 of the companies recently because a couple of them help out in the city when we need them. And so I just think it's good that we have that available. And all we do is we put out RFP that limits it to that particular backup position, and we'll go ahead and take whoever's best qualified at that point.
I have one last question, our city manager. How much would it cost to open up the RFP system again? It seems like it wasn't too much as what the mayor is indicating towards.
So we could reuse the 2021 template. We would review it to make sure it was updated. So issuing the RFP should not take too much staff time. The bulk of the staff time will be every proposal that's submitted needs to be reviewed and read by an internal city committee. It usually consists of at least 3 employees. So their time to review all the proposals, then we always do interviews with a subset, so their time to schedule those interviews. So depending on which employees, if you have a bunch of directors involved, it could be thousands of dollars to run the RFP process.
Just one last thing, sorry. You know, before, sorry. Yeah, so one last thing. So I would not be against, you know, giving this time to see if we do have a necessity or a need, and then coming back and talking about this. I'm just worried about, you know, the wasting of staff resources. But apart from that, I would like to see this maybe in a couple months, and maybe we could talk about it in a different light then.
First of all, it's not going to cost a lot of money because we already have the template for this. We've already put it out. Most of these are already qualified. It's just a matter of selecting it. Maybe nobody has an interest in being number 2. But the thing on that too is that you can't predict the future. We may never need it, or we might need it tomorrow. If tomorrow comes and we don't have something, then we're not prepared for it. I think this is just a way to be prepared for the future if we need it. The process is very simple. We just simply send the same RFP out, but instead of being a primary, there would be a secondary. And the wording and language can all be the same. And we do know already, I know Jim knows all the tow companies already, so it's not like we're reinventing the wheel. Go ahead, Yuri.
How long has Southland been our only source?
I don't have the answer to that question. I know for at least the past 5 years. I don't know historically going back if they were.
Well, I mean, does it go back 5 years? We've had them for
Yes,
5
I believe
years.
this is the 5th year.
Most of the tow companies have been over 20, 25 years in this city. Some have been 30, 35.
Well, I
Russell's
understand
Tow-
that, but we've had this particular company for 5 years, and we want to continue using it.
Correct.
I
I
don't
think
see
this
the
is a request for the
necessity
5th
Yeah, but
year.
the
having a
same,
backup.
but Gary, we've used for the last 30 years or 20 years, all the other tow companies also. It's not like Southland has been the sole provider for this city for,
Since 21, it has, though.
I beg your pardon?
Didn't we just say since 2021, it has been the sole?
No.
No? I think Hannah said it was.
Yes, it is.
Now we're solidifying and extending an agreement, but prior to that, this was open to everybody in the city.
So
Prior
in
to
2020?
21, yes.
Okay. But we haven't had any problems. Why muck it up if we haven't had any problems?
Well, I'll tell you right now, we've had other people besides Southland tow in the city of Stanton in the last 2 years or 3 or 4 years. Yes, we have. Go ahead, John.
I want to clarify, this is the business located at Industrial and Mercantile?
Not aware of their street address.
Because I'm aware of them being there at that corner. The front gate of the property says Police Impound Lot. So which agency are they also working with in that? Do we know?
Their other clients are. All we know is that they provided a response to the scope of work included in the request for proposals that the city issued. They would have to provide references, and we check references, but we don't ask who are your other clients.
Okay, and the reason I'm asking is because if that lot were to get filled because of their other existing contracts, is there any situation where they may be overbooked?
I couldn't respond to that. I don't know if they have others, but I can tell you, and since October of 2021, we have not run into that issue.
Okay.
Hannah, what is the negative of getting a backup?
I don't think there's a negative per se. I know depending on what the scope of work is, it's work for people to respond to a request for proposal. So if there's no guarantee, many times people won't be interested because, to the mayor's point, they may never get a job. And so they don't know if it's worth it to go through this process just to be a backup. I do want to clarify one more time, the Muni Code does give myself and the Director of Public Safety the opportunity to reach out to another tow truck company if anything were to happen where the lot filled up, they weren't able to respond in a timely manner. And of course, if customer service issues ever arose, we can terminate this contract at any time and we can re-go out to RFP. So it's not like we're prohibited from having a backup. I think the mayor's point would be there would be a designated backup. So if any of those instances ever came up, we would only go to that other vendor.
So if we approve this, with our law enforcement, if when they encounter a situation where they need to tow a vehicle, do they go with who the city has chosen, or who would they be calling in?
I don't know the answer to that. I can defer to Captain Pierce.
The county has contracts with multiple tow companies throughout the county, so it's on, basically it's on a rotational basis. So I could probably safely say that no, it wouldn't just be Southland being the only one. There might be a tow company, say, that's based out of Westminster or Garden Grove, that would be involved as well. So that's something that I would have to look into to give a complete answer on, but I do know that we have multiple tow companies throughout the county for effective service for all of our contract cities.
Okay, thank you. And following that, so effectively, this contract would be primarily, it seems, for city services.
Correct. This is only a city contract.
I just wanted to make one comment because Captain Pierce is talking about other towing companies. So this agreement with Southland, for every car that they tow, the city collects $90 per vehicle. So those other companies that the sheriff may have come tow something in an emergency wouldn't be subject to giving the city any rebate. So that's what's covered in this agreement before you right now. That's part of the franchise agreement. It is not a huge, but a revenue generator for the city.
Go ahead, Don.
I lost it, never mind.
You know, I think the chief hit the nail on the head. The reason why the county has a variety of them, because it's good to have more than one. And I know that it's a large area of the county of Orange, but I would say that a majority of the tow companies in Stanton also tow for the Orange County Sheriff's Department. They also tow for the Highway Patrol, and also they tow for companies like Caltrans. So it's just, it's just in the past, and, I'm okay with, the way things have been, but we've always had more than one. We've had multiple opportunities because we try to be fair to all our businesses by rotating it so that each one gets it. I can see why we might be having trouble to where we want to designate one, because that one is responsible for towing even nonprofit cars, which has been a real trouble in the industry. But I think it's good that, and it's no harm, like I said, to have another company available if we need it. And if Southland isn't on the rotate with the Sheriff's Department, they might get somebody out of the city, or they might get somebody in the city to tow, and then that would be something where we're not taking care of our local businesses. Go ahead, John.
With the list of qualified applicants that we had in the previous posting, is there any feasible way we just look at number 2 and go, you're the one?
For RFP proposals that are 4 years old, that wouldn't be a good idea. I would say we should reissue a fresh RFP and make them respond and indicate their interest.
Second the mayor's motion. I feel that we can prove the existing agreement that's on the table here. And then when it comes to looking at the mayor's proposal, that's something we can deliberate at a future time. And if we don't like it, we don't have to prove it at that point. But I think for this moment, we can approve that recommendation.
The other things that I want to make sure of is that, we have our in-the-field staff that works with this every day, and I know that they'll be part of the panel that does the review for the RFP. I think they know who in the city that can work with them, And how do we know? Maybe some of the other companies weren't even aware that this bid was out. I'm not sure how it was advertised. I was not aware of it. You have to go online sometimes to see these opportunities. But I think by doing this, like you said, it's just kind of have something in our back pocket. After we do and go through the RFP process, we can actually go back and review it. And if we feel as a council that is something that's going to be beneficial, we can either say yea or nay at that point.
I just want to clarify to make sure if anybody's listening, the city's purchasing and contracting guidelines do not provide for a local benefit for local vendors. Everything will be done equitably and based on a response to the scope of work. In-town businesses do not get a preference when applying for professional services. So I just want to be clear to anybody listening.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Would you please read the motion?
Mr. Mayor, we have a motion by Mayor Shaver, a second by Councilmember Warren. Mayor Shaver's motion is to have a backup towing service to supplement Southland in case they are not able to provide services to the city, to reissue an RFP for a backup vendor. Is that correct, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, let's do a roll call, please.
I will now proceed with the roll call vote. Councilmember Warren? Aye. Councilmember Barrios? Aye. Councilmember Taylor? No. Mayor Pro Tem Torres? And Mayor Shaver?
Yes.
Item passes with a 3-0 vote.
Okay, go ahead, Madam Clerk, with the next item.
The next item on the agenda that was pulled from the consent calendar for separate discussion is item 9G, authority to advertise for construction of citywide sign replacement project Phase 1. Councilmember Warren, your questions for staff, sir?
First of all, this is an item that a lot of people have asked for a long time, and I'm sure many people will be happy to see that street signs are being taken care of here. So first of all, thank you for having this on the agenda. I just want to echo some things I heard when I was out walking on the campaign trail, that there was concerns about grammatical errors with some of the street signs, maybe an errant space or an errant letter. On just a few signs, but I just would hope we can do our due diligence and just re-looking over that master list and compare when we get this going out. But otherwise, can I get a brief update on this and see what we're looking at for this timeline?
Yeah, good evening, Mayor, City Council Member Cesar Angelo, Director of Public Works. So this project is about 250 signs. We're mainly focusing on the arterials and collector streets. And then focusing, the next phase would be the residential areas that we would do. So this, the main collectors and arterials are the ones that get the most visits, more, so we want to work with that priority. Phase 2 would be the residential streets. So that'll come down probably once this project's complete. I want to, this is our first rebranding street name sign, so I want to it's a smaller project, but it's also want to make sure we get any kinks that are issues with the name signs, the grammatical errors and stuff like that. I want to make sure we, get through all that stuff, vetted out now. And then the bigger one, it's going to be a few, more, a few thousand signs that we're going to place in residential streets. But this way, we do a small project, we scale it out, make sure everything's done properly, and then we focus on phase 2, which is all the residential streets in the future.
Thank you, Cesar, for that. And the other thing I would say is, as soon as we get some of those signs out, let's get some posts on social media and let people know that the new signs are out there. So,
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cesar. Do we have a motion on the item?
First. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Thank you. That passes. We'll move on now. We just finished our consent calendar. There's no public hearings, no unfinished business. New business, 12A, an ordinance amending the Stanton Municipal Code regarding Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That would be a report by me. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. We have before you this evening an ordinance amending provisions of the Stanton Municipal Code regarding the Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Commission. The City Council recently directed staff to bring back an ordinance that fixed the numbers of the Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Commission from 7 members to 5 members. The proposed ordinance implements change and also proposes renaming the commission to Community Services Commission. The recommended action for this evening is that City Council find this item not subject to CEQA, introduce the first reading of ordinance number 1159 entitled, An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Stanton, California, amending Chapter 2.32 of Title II of the Stanton Municipal Code regarding the Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Commission's name, number, and appointment process, and set said ordinance for adoption at the February 11th, 2025 regularly scheduled City Council meeting. That concludes staff's report. Staff is available to answer any questions that you may have this evening.
Is there any discussion?
I just wanted to say thank you to Xenia staff for getting the name change on there. That was something as commissioners we had worked on for about 2 years, and this brings the commission now in line with the other commission and committee to where they match the department name. Parks and Recreation had changed a few years back, and so this now clarifies that it's representative of the Community Services Department. So I'm happy to see that. My only question I have is regarding the code changes. Is this only covering code changes relevant to the commission itself? Because there's code in, for instance, the homeless ordinances that reference the commission. Will those be changed as well?
Mayor and council, I believe that the provisions of the ordinance provide that wherever the reference is to the parks, formerly the Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Commission, those changes will all be made. So there's a global change to all those references, and that will be sent to the codifier.
Thank you. That was something we brought up as a commission, is looking over the code. We would see both names, two different commission names previously, so we just wanted to make sure that was unified. So again, thank you, staff. I'll make the motion on that.
Opposed, anybody abstain? Thank you.
Due to this being an ordinance, we will need to
that's
proceed
right.
with a roll call vote. We have a motion by Councilmember Warren, a second by Councilmember Taylor. I'll now proceed with a roll call vote. Councilmember Warren?
Aye.
Councilmember Barrios? Councilmember Taylor? Mayor Pro Tem Torres?
Yes.
Mayor Shaver? Thank you, sir. Item passes 5-0.
Okay, 12B, study session on homesteading.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. Tonight I will be inviting Planning Manager Irving Anaya up to provide a presentation to the council regarding homesteading.
If we can just test the microphone before you start your presentation, please.
Check.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members, and members of the public. Tonight's study session was requested by council to discuss homesteading in the city, or more commonly known as urban homesteading. So Merriam-Webster defines homesteading as the act or practice of living frugally and self-sufficiently, especially by growing and preserving food. Urban homesteading is commonly seen as a household that produces a significant part of food, including livestock, consumed by its residents. Cultivation of such products are commonly seen in backyards or single-family homes or common open spaces within multifamily development. These are often seen for personal use, community building, and food production. Although the city's municipal code does not clearly identify urban homesteading, staff has researched code language and identified specific sections that potentially relate to homesteading activities. Some language includes section 8.04.020, where the city specifically prohibits property owners from keeping and maintaining any wild animals, roosters, or a member of the swine family within the city without first obtaining a special permit. Additionally, the city established a limit of how many adult dogs, cats, rabbits, or fowl and their offspring can be maintained at a property, while also requiring special permits such as a minor use permit or conditional use permit for aviaries, racing pigeon lofts, boarding and grooming facilities, or animal hospitals. It is important to remember that animals can sometimes be vocal and disruptive, which can potentially lead to disturbing their surroundings. The city implemented section 8.04.070, where it is unlawful for any person owning an animal to allow their animals to disrupt another person's quiet enjoyment of his or her property or damage or destroy the property of any other person. As previously mentioned, urban homesteading can also lead to the keeping and maintaining of livestock. As noted in the municipal code, the city of Stanton allows for such activity under specific regulations. The slide before you provides those regulations specific to horses, cows, and other hoofed animals. These regulations include minimum lot size, corral and covered shelter size requirements, number of animals allowed based on lot size, maximum number of animals, and most importantly, distance requirements to habitable dwelling units. The diagram in this slide illustrates an example of how distance requirements are reviewed. Please note that the plans are not to scale. The city also allows the keeping and maintaining of a chicken coop. Much like the previous regulations, the city regulates distance requirements between habitable dwelling unit and the chicken coop. Another important section to note is within Title 20, which is zoning, Section 20.400.040, titled Animal Keeping. This section provides standards with the goal of ensuring animal keeping activities do not adversely impact adjacent properties by reason of bright lights, dust, insect infestations, noise, odor, or visual blight. This table can be found in this code section, which lays out specific standards for different types of animals one can own in the city. I won't go through each of those items, but it is important to note that the city allows small livestock on properties located within the residential estate or the RE zone designation. As previously mentioned, the city's goal is to ensure that these activities do not adversely impact adjacent properties. Properties located in the RE zone are typically larger in size, reaching a minimum of 20,000 square feet, allowing these standards and regulations to be met, whereas properties within single-family residential zone fall within 5,000 to 6,000 square feet in size, making it more difficult to meet. As an example, the minimum lot size requirement to keep and maintain a horse is 16,000 square feet, with the minimum distance requirement of 50 feet from a dwelling unit on an adjacent property. Another common urban homestead activity is beekeeping, or apiaries. The city currently allows apiaries within the RE zone and requires beekeepers to follow specific regulations such as registration with the city, Orange County Agriculture Commissioner, and registration with OC Animal Control Office. Similar to animals, hives must also be kept a certain distance from property lines. Bees can sometimes pose a threat to others. However, the city can provide enforcement should bees ever become a nuisance to neighboring properties. Lastly, aviaries can also be considered an urban homestead activity. The city currently allows these activities for the keeping of racing or homing pigeons. Properties located within the RE zone are allowed to keep and maintain up to 100 pigeons under specific regulations. These regulations include how many pigeons may be released at any one time for exercise purposes, training purposes, the location of the pigeon loft on the property, and more specifically, the owner must be a member of recognized pigeon organization with annual registration and licensing. As previously mentioned, urban homesteading can promote community building, and one enjoyable way is through the establishment of a community garden. A community garden is a common activity amongst urban homesteading. The city's municipal code does identify a community garden as a site for growing plants that is shared and maintained by community members. For those interested, the city has a community garden, also known as the Stanton Community Garden. The city has also incorporated Orange County regulations into the city's municipal code as it relates to animal control, animal welfare, animal license, and animal health requirements. These include the requirement of all livestock to be contained and confined within a fence that will prevent the ingress and egress of livestock. It is also unlawful to bring into the county and/or city any animals known to be affected by any contagious infectious disease, unless such animals are specifically permitted under federal or state regulations. Having this language in the municipal code ensures consistent language with other agencies. Within Orange County, there are several cities that also allow various forms of urban homesteading. Cities like Anaheim, which allow keeping of chickens, however, no roosters, under certain restrictions. City of Buena Park allows horticulture production, keeping of small animals, and beekeeping. City of Cypress also allows horticulture and keeping of animals within a specific zoning designation similar to Stanton's. City of Fullerton allows the keeping of small and traditional livestock on lots with a specific minimum lot size and also regulate distance requirements. And lastly, City of La Habra allows for the keeping of livestock and bees within their agricultural zones. Once again, as I previously mentioned in the presentation, animals can be vocal and potentially disruptive to their surroundings. Some challenges with urban homesteading can be noise and smell. Small livestock, compost piles, or other common homesteading activities have the potential to generate noise and odor. This can potentially affect adjacent properties if the site and animals are not well maintained. Vector and pest issues. It's also important to note crops, small livestock, and composting can attract pests such as insects or rodents. Additionally, some common pest management practices could essentially introduce pesticides and insecticides that may be harmful to adjacent properties. And lastly, neighbor relations. Some urban homesteading activities such as composting, crop cultivation, or keeping chickens can negatively impact neighboring properties. This may cause disputes between neighbors over noise, odors, pests, or aesthetic concerns. Although there are best management practices out there, there is still that potential negative impact. Now let's talk about positive impacts. Through staff's research, we found that urban homesteading can lead to a more sustainable lifestyle. More specifically, these activities may allow you to reduce your ecological footprint on the environment and decrease your reliance on external resources by having easier access to organic produce grown in your yards. Having these gardens can also help promote a healthier open space with nature while also strengthening the community with like-minded individuals. So with the information presented tonight and provided in your report, staff is seeking City Council direction for the next steps. For your consideration, the city can conduct a budget workshop during the fiscal year of 2025-26 and have staff develop standards for properties where urban homesteading could be permitted. Such standards can include minimum lot sizes and minimum setback requirements. Staff can also develop a streamlined review and permitting process for owners proposing to engage in urban homesteading activities on their properties with minimum standards. And the city can also explore partnership opportunities with local colleges, horticulture organizations to provide education programs about urban homesteading practices and provide resources to community members. It would also be beneficial to seek grant funding opportunities to provide monetary resources to promote and support urban homesteading. And this concludes staff's presentation. Staff is available to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you to city staff for taking the time and resources to put this together. This is a part of our municipal code that doesn't really get looked after. And the reason why I brought this up is because there is some residents on Facebook asking what were the minimum requirements to keep livestock in, their home. And, seeing our current municipal code around these things, I was surprised that we have a lot of great things, already. And it seems like previous councils have been kind of on it, you know what I mean, to update and have new, laws there. But it seems clear to me that we have an issue in our city, which is that a lot of our residents own chickens. And right now, our municipal code doesn't really specify what would be the minimum requirement to own at least one chicken or two chickens in, I guess like what are like the minimum requirements and whatnot. So I think I would really like for staff to add those statistics in there so then our residents could know what would be the minimum requirements for, let's say, individual animals if they choose to, because right now it seems like there's like a limited amount, or like it starts off, I guess, starting off with 8 chickens instead of 1 is what I see on our graph or on our chart. If there's any other things that we can, that we can update for minimum requirements, I think it would be great if we can do that.
Council. To clarify, Vice Mayor Torres, so regarding the chickens, I understand the table that's included in the Muni Code starts at 8 with a minimum lot size of 16,000 square feet, which could be confusing to residents thinking that, if I only wanted 1 or 2 and not 8. So to clarify, expand the table, and it sounds like you would want to have a smaller lot size for fewer chickens.
Yes.
So have staff research what could be reasonable, bring that back as a proposal to the council specifically related to chickens.
Yes. Okay. It's honestly like looking into this issue and walking our neighborhoods, I've seen that this issue is very much cultural. So I feel like sometimes, if we're not from that specific culture, there could be a gap, in knowledge or understanding. So I think it's important that we look into this and update these minimum requirements.
Go ahead, John.
What current zoning within the city allows chickens?
That's in the residential estate, the RE zone.
Visualizing it to me, I know that's the purple section of the map, but that means about 90% of the city is not in residential estate zoning.
Yeah, it's primarily single-family residential, where RE is a small neighborhood in the city.
Make a change to how many chickens may chicken, that would only apply to pretty much one neighborhood.
That, if I may, that would actually be staff's request for clarification. So if that amendment to include standards for less than 8 chickens would only apply to the existing zoning that it's located within, or if the council had the desire to expand it out to all residential zones or just the RL zone, which is residential limited, the single-family neighborhoods, and not the multifamily neighborhoods. So we would ask for that distinction from the council.
That. And the reason is because we have a lot of residents right now that have chickens. So I think it's essential that we get them also up to code as well.
And again, clarify, so including the multifamily zones or just the single family?
Including the
multifamily. Okay.
Could do as staff is we could first come back and provide a map to the city council with all the various residential zones that this could apply to. And we can also try to show you what is kind of an average lot size. And then you can direct us further at that point. I think right now, staff is very aware of the technical specifications throughout the city, but it may not be as familiar information to the council. So I would recommend allowing staff to do additional research, provide that graphic to you of the different overlays, and then also kind of the average lot size in those areas, so you can consider what that would look like with a chicken and the minimum distance requirements next to the next adjacent unit.
Would it be possible to put chickens in a multi-unit environment? Like a apartment complex, condos? Is that even possible?
I mean,
where would you keep them?
No, it happens. Like, it's happening right now.
So I think that's why it would be helpful for the council if we could bring you some more information to consider how you would like to proceed.
That would be awful.
If you take a look at the presentation that we just had, I think you'll see that the city has really specified particular items for almost every type of animal. There's some things that you have to be aware of. We do have zones in the city that allow agricultural. It's where, like example, where John lives. You can have buffalo there if you want, or elephants and giraffes, it's okay. But if you start allowing animals of any type throughout our entire community, the problem with that is, number one, enforcement. Our enforcement department probably wouldn't have the time or wherewithal to enforce those laws. So whatever we decide to do with this in the future, we have to make sure that we're able to regulate it. Otherwise, it'll be out of control. The other thing, too, is that when I get complaints about animals, it's because they're bothering the neighbors or the neighborhood or the group they're at. And that leads to some really serious confrontations, which we don't need in our community. I have no objection, and I support at least looking at, maybe like you mentioned, chickens, how that would be done and received. I know that if I bought a brand-new house in Stanton and my neighbor had chickens, and the chickens weren't cooperative to the environment, that's going to cause a problem. The other thing, too, is that we got to make sure that we have absolutely no roosters with the chickens. Okay, so we'll have to outlaw those guys.
But you have to be equitable.
Okay, we'll let the roosters live over on Lola.
So very quickly, what I'm asking for here is like just setting up minimum requirements so somebody could have like a pet chicken. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people have like even just pet chickens. You know what I mean? As a thing. So I'd really appreciate it, just like Mayor Shaver said, to just look into it, to consider it. I think that would be great. And then if we have any issues, we could talk it out and see what we can pass together.
Out of respect, just to look at it, I mean, what, Hannah, how much time and cost of the city is that going to be?
To identify a map with the residential overlays and the average lot size, it won't take very long.
Okay.
Once, if the council decides to move forward, or if you ask for additional research, but that's all information that we already have.
I do want to thank the staff report on this. Having an opportunity to compare with other cities did kind of allow us to actually see that Stanton was surprisingly progressive on this matter. I would be happy to know, regarding this chicken issue, what our other cities are doing in that matter. To the extent that, if an apartment has a chicken, it's within the purview of the apartment, whether they allow a cat, or whether they allow a dog, or they allow a giraffe. So ultimately, that's going to come down to the property owner. So I don't know if us changing that's going to have much of an impact on apartments, but for single-family homes and such, might be interesting.
You listed, I think it was 5 cities. Okay, there's 34 cities in Orange County. Does that mean that the other 29 do not have chickens?
So to save on time, staff didn't do an intensive research effort where we went into every single city's municipal code. So we did Google searches, and those were the cities that regularly came up, either identified in newspaper articles as having recently adopted muni code changes to allow for some type of homesteading activity, or their muni code readily came up. So there may be other cities within Orange County and neighboring counties that allow some type of homesteading activity. If the council wanted us to do that, that would be a significant staff effort to go through the muni codes of all 34 Orange County cities.
That being said, I think it would help in the request from Councilmember Torres if we call upon UC, Cal State Fullerton. They have a demographic computer system, and I would not be surprised if they didn't have some information on this available. We pay a certain amount of money every year to use that system or to be part of it. And I think it would be a good, maybe that we can find it out. Also, we can look at the California League of Cities, Orange County's database, and some others, and that way we can get an idea of what's going on in the county, what the success is, what the negatives are, what the positive, and I think it'll help us make the decision. Plus, it doesn't cost anything to pick up the phone and call.
Mayor, I'm not aware of that resource at Cal State Fullerton. If you expect staff to utilize that, can I please get more information? The demographic database that you thought might have chicken data, I'm not aware of us subscribing to anything.
Well, they are talking about agricultural information.
Oh, just asking Cal State Fullerton in general?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't want to spend too much staff time on this. We will send one email to a Cal State Fullerton representative and one email to the League of California Cities. If we don't have a response, I'm not directing staff to spend any additional time on that. Okay.
And if you want, you can go to ACCOC if you're sending out emails. That would give us 3. Okay? Okay, so you want to make a motion?
Sir.
Oh, to go ahead and look at the different areas in the map, right, as we talked about, to see how it would affect, right? Depending on the change of minimum distance, right, where it would impact and where it would not. And was there something else that we said that you guys were
The
looking at?
number of chickens.
Oh, and the number of chicken minimums, if we could update that.
After you see the data, yeah.
Checking with Cal State Fullerton and Cal Cities, yes.
Cal State Fullerton, ACCOC, and Cal Cities.
Okay, is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? That passes 5-0.
Thank you for supporting my chicken presentation.
You're welcome. It behooved me to do so.
We can read about that tomorrow in the paper. Okay, at this time, we're going to move on to, are we on 13?
15.
Yeah, oral communication. At this time, the public may address the city council, the successor agency, Stanton Housing Authority regarding any items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council successor agency, Stanton Housing Authority, provided that no action may be taken on non-agenda items. So my question, before I do that, or I can ask it after, is there any request to speak?
Mr. Mayor, we did not receive any from members of the public, nor did I receive any written communications as well.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the city council on any items at this time? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back. I did have a question. Since I'm chairman and he's vice chairman of the successor agency, what powers do we have now? Because we're in a position where things that affect redevelopment are maybe coming to light. What can we do to use that position? And is it, I know it's been dissolved. The only reason it's there is so that we get our money. It wasn't so we get our payout. Wasn't that the whole deal? But didn't we get our last payout? And if we did, why do we still have this on here?
I'll let Michelle address that question, our Director of Finance, but there is a reason that we're still in existence.
We're in existence for about 45 more years until every debt obligation is paid. So every 6 months, we receive our redevelopment property tax monies from the Department of Finance based on our last and final approved recognized obligation payment schedule. So we had one final one that the Department of Finance approved that lists out how much money we're going to get every 6 months for the next 45 years. It's on our city's website under the finance information. And then once the last debt payment is paid in 45 years, then there is no more successor agency, and the funds go through the county, and then we'll get our residual through our general fund like we normally do.
And Mayor, there may be some confusion. Some cities continue to have to go before the county to get their recognized obligation payment schedule approved. The city of Stanton got its final approval a couple of years ago, so that part of it was completed. Some other cities are still in the process.
What about EROPS?
2020, yeah.
Are we still receiving EROPS?
So our final ROPS was approved by the Department of Finance in January 2nd of 2020, right before I joined. And so we don't have to submit it to the County Oversight Board and the Department of Finance for approval every year like many Orange County successor agencies do. We are done, and the Department of Finance just automatically sends the County of Orange the amounts that are on this payment schedule. It goes every 6 months. We just got, approximately $5 million on January 2nd that are paying the debt service obligations of the successor agency. So there's really no action for the successor agency chair and vice chair to do. The state of California does have other economic development funding opportunities that would flow through the city council, nothing through the successor agency.
But we do need your administrative approval to authorize each of those payments when they come up.
Is there any relationship between the successor agency and low and moderate housing requirements and housing in general in the city anymore? Do we have
Not for the successor agency, because when the successor agency dissolved, the housing successor was designated by this body to be the Stanton Housing Authority. So all of the housing monies that might have been held by the former redevelopment agency went to, including the assets, AKA the TINA Pacific properties that were bought by the redevelopment agency, went to the Stanton Housing Authority. So those are their housing responsibilities are through the Housing Authority.
So
And then
some of
hung
that
out.
money, some of that money that we did use, we did buy some low and moderate housing in the city of Stanton to provide that back in those days. And is that applicable to what we're doing today? Is there a tie with that? Can that be carried over?
Mayor, we're still researching. I know you've shared with staff that you believe that has happened. We still haven't been able to locate documentation to validify that. So we're still in the process of searching for that.
When you were all a twinkle in your father's eye many years ago, we actually took out, I think, it was a few million.
Mayor, this is not an agendized item, so
I'm discussing it because it's on the consent calendar.
item is on the consent calendar for clarification.
It says that we can have comments regarding the successor agency.
This is oral communications from the public, that members of the public may address the city council, successor agency, or Stanton Housing Authority. And so if there's members of the public who would like to address the council on these items, but if the council would like to discuss this further, I would recommend we agendize this for a future meeting.
Down there.
He wants to go down as a resident and address the council.
Because you've already clocked in as mayor. You've already voted in as being present,
Oh, so I'm
serving
not a
as the
resident
mayor.
anymore?
You are, but you're serving in the capacity as mayor at this time.
Yeah, but I still think I have a right to it. I'm not going to,
Right.
but I still think that even though we're elected officials, we're still residents and we have a right to, or to say something.
Absolutely. And then, I mean, you're welcome to speak, within the timeframe, but then again, we can't have a back and forth discussion regarding a non-agendized item.
Okay, I'm just going to leave it at this. I think that there's some benefit to us having done that activity many years ago, and I'd like to maybe, at the future, we'll talk about getting it on the agenda. Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay. All right, written communications, none. Mayor, Council, James, authority initiated business. Committee reports, authority announcements. Go ahead, Donald.
I got two, actually. Hello, everybody. Last week, I was very excited to join the advisory committee at Bridges at Kramer Place. This is a homeless shelter that provides beds to us here in Stanton. From what I heard is that our Hawks also really participate closely with the staff at Bridges at Kramer Place, and I got some really interesting data that I think I would like to share with the community. This is data given to me by Mercy House, right? It was given to all of us over there at the advisory committee, and this paper talks about the needs in the North Spa, which is our area. So at the moment, low barrier shelter beds that are available in North Orange County, basically the North SPA, is around 799 beds. But the unsheltered homeless individuals in the North SPA is 3,227. So although there are other beds that, go ahead and try to fulfill this need, I think that low barrier entry beds are really essential because it provides people who, have drug addiction, who have issues, to basically get into a bed and, fulfill one of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs in order for them to be able to accept services later on. So that was really interesting for me to learn about. The bed utilization over there as well is 95%, so I was kind of happy to see that. And then it seems like almost every month the utilization of these beds is in the 90s. So it was good to, to go ahead and see that. My second announcement.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How many Stanton people are in there now?
I do not have that data, but I could get that. I could ask.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have empty beds for us there?
We do have beds available.
For Stanton?
For Stanton, yes.
But you don't know how many right now?
I don't know how many we have available, but it does cater to us, and
So
they do give us beds.
if somebody's service resistant, and we have the beds, then we would be able to move forward with other opportunities then, right?
Sorry, please repeat that.
If we have available beds and somebody is service resistant, then it would give us other options of how we handle that, right?
Well, what I can say is that low entry barrier beds do provide a larger, they cater to a larger population that might be the ones that, go ahead and commit crimes usually, but that gives them basically the foot in the door for them to be able to address these issues that they have.
Just to clarify for the council, I think the mayor is referencing a settlement agreement that certain cities and the county entered into, which required before any action could be taken by a city that an offer of an available bed had to be made. So I will say that there are beds available to Stanton. They are first come, first served. Bridges at Kramer serves a large population. And I will tell you in our regular reports from both Mercy House and Salvation Army, just because of the population, and once a person gets into that bed, to Vice Mayor Torres's point, it's very hard to move them out because there's not enough permanent supportive housing for them to move into. So these navigation centers, which were traditionally envisioned to house individuals for 60 to 90 days, are actually housing people for more than a year. And so you see a very high utilization rate. It's very hard to get a bed. I will say the percentage of beds that are allocated to Stanton are very low, not because Stanton is not trying. It's very hard to come across a vacant bed.
And that's the conclusion of that announcement. For the second one, a lot of issues here in the community have come up to my attention. Unfortunately, because of the new administration's policies towards our immigrant community, a lot of our community members are scared. I've had conversations with many of our residents, feeling like they're going to be ripped apart from their homes tonight or tomorrow. Even though we've had, statements prepared by OC sheriffs reaffirming that, if anybody calls for a crime, they won't ask for immigration status, which was nice. So thank you. It's interesting because children of undocumented folks are worried if they'll be able to finish, school or not. That's a really big fear here in the community. Their immigrants' contributions to productivity has uplifted our community. I just want to point out that at one time in Orange County history, Orange County benefited from the exploitations of braceros in 1942 from the Bracero program. And basically, these were immigrants brought from Mexico, where the majority of workers were from. They also brought workers from Jamaica and Japan to work our fields. Additionally, a lot of American citizens with immigrant parents worked hard in these orange groves. So a lot of our labor here in Orange County was built off of the backs of immigrants. Immigrants help all of our community grow in wealth and productivity, and I am happy that our city is referencing people to a program where they could spread information and not misinformation. Right now, knowledge is power, and I hope that our community stays safe. Thank you.
I had a chance to go through and look at the new development by Benani, the Bixby property. They're having an open house, and happy to say that they've already sold 15 of the 79 properties, and most of those are not even built yet, and people are buying them already. So, I mean, that shows how much of a housing demand that we have, not just in Stanton, but countywide and, well, statewide. On top of that, I'm happy to say I'm going to be going to council training for the rest of this week. So I imagine that's going to be fun. I'm going to have an opportunity to interact with state lawmakers across the state. So I'm going to have fun doing that. And I also want to say thank you to the Don Barnes for putting out that statement and clarifying some of the concerns that I've also seen along with Councilmember Torres. I also want to just warn individuals out there that some people thrive on producing fear, and I've seen a lot of messages out there that are trying to make residents more concerned and more afraid of what's happening out there. And I've been keeping an eye on some civil rights groups, such as one that Councilmember Torres shared on his Facebook the other day, saying that at this time they had not had a confirmed sighting of ICE, but you're seeing a lot of posts on social media right now that are purposely trying to terrify residents. So I would ask for those that are concerned to stay vigilant and stay informed.
To piggyback off of Councilmember Warren's comment, following the Instagram page and the community OC Rapid Response Network is a very good way to stay informed and know if there's any immigration officers in your area as well.
All right, moving on. We didn't have any activities, did we, recently, that I can think of? Zinnia, we were down for a while, right? Okay, items for future meeting. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to agendize for a future meeting a conversation about putting a ballot initiative and possibly raising a tax on tobacco products. Thank you.
City tax? Okay, thank you. All right, future study session. On to city-initiated items. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before you, we have item 15D, which is City Council initiated item, discussion regarding review of the city's current municipal codes relating to fencing requirements and setbacks within the city. At the January 14th meeting, Councilmember Barrios requested that this item be agendized for discussion. Councilmember Barrios is again requesting to discuss the city's review of current municipal codes relating to fencing requirements and setbacks for safety related to homelessness and criminal activity. Councilmember Barrios?
Concerned about amending our fencing ordinance that we currently have. I believe there's Hannah, do you know what the setback is right now for commercial?
Bet Community Development Director Crystal Lindavaso does.
It varies in different areas of the city, but along Beach and Catella, it's a 5-foot setback.
And the concern I have with this is with the transient population that we have, if businesses have to follow that ordinance, it gives the homeless transients a place to stay and potentially the chickens. And I think allowing a change or discussing a change with this, it would allow them to claim more of their property, like in a residential area where, like for example, I live in the corner. I built a wall all the way to, I didn't have a setback, so I claim more yard, plus it keeps dogs away from doing their business. I think it's just something we should look at and discuss it. And, I've been discussing with some of my concerns with our mayor and just open up and see what we can do to help increase and make the businesses safer.
Thank you, Victor, for bringing this up. As you know, we have declared a state of emergency in our city. However, one of the things that we might be able to do to make our city a little bit safer is to review the city ordinance 20.310, which deals with fences, barriers, hedges, and things along those lines. As you know, it's interesting that we really don't have any set things because it's kind of like every little area has a different concept or a different reason. And so what we have for residential is a little different for commercial, is a little different for industrial, is a little different for maybe another zone. I think we should, review all of them and find out how we can best serve the safety of the areas that we're talking about. As an example, if we designate specific areas and have it regulated by the city and administrated by the city, it can augment some of the different municipal regulations that we have at this point. I think what we're talking about, however, is that we have a lot of individuals or groups that take advantage of the distance between a sidewalk and property lines because the fences are set back. If you look at everything south of Beach Boulevard going to Garden Grove Boulevard, you'll see that wherever the fence is on the line, there's really nobody encamped there. There's nobody loitering there. There's nobody that is, staying in that particular area. Because if you realize what we've done is we now push them back into the public right-of-way, and which sometimes does cause concern. One of the other things that's interesting about this is that if we were to come up with a solution to this, it would probably be something where we could actually define the locations where it's needed. I also have found that other areas that are impacted are areas near storm channels. Wherever you have a storm channel where individuals that live under the storm channel, under the major streets such as Cantella and Beach, usually migrate to areas where there is spaces between the fence line and actually it's in the shrubbery between the fence line and the sidewalk. The other thing along those same lines is that you'll find that wherever they have an opportunity to do that, it does create an area where we've lost 3 transformers, city transformers for buildings, where the electrical supply is. We have people that have parties in those areas. We have people that sell things in those areas. And it really prohibits the safety of the property owner for him to, or he or she to have that type of atmosphere. I think one of the things we should probably begin to look at is our arterials, such as Beach Boulevard, Catella, Chapman, Lamson, Western, Magnolia, that type. Those are the main things. Because if you look in the residential areas, there's not a lot of people who give up that 5 feet between a fence line and their sidewalk. That's pretty well standard there. The other thing that's interesting that I found is that if we recently gave permission, and I don't know how it happened, but if you look at some of the recent developments in areas where we had individuals camping and also groups camping, those businesses in commercial areas didn't have a setback. They actually put their fence right on the cement sidewalk. Example would be Motel 6, Mercantile right over here, and even our city community services center. So I think there's a reason why those fences were allowed there, because it prohibits, that type of thing. The other thing too is that I want to make sure that if we do that it's ornate. In other words, I don't want chain link fences. I want something that is conducive to the aesthetics. I think if we give the ability of our community development director to make sure that it's part of the architectural design of whatever's going in that building, I think it's important that we do that. I think it's something that we should do in a very expedient manner, because at this time, I think it would help the overall public safety initiative that we've been working on here in this community. I think it's also queued upon ourselves to make sure that if we could, we might even have a sunset, so that after we get to a period of where it doesn't necessitate itself, then we could stop allowing that type of activity or that type of structure. I give you an example. There is what I think is a pretty nice fashion wrought iron fence around the old Park Avenue at this time on Beach Boulevard. After checking with the property owner, because they've lost tens of thousands of dollars with people going in there, at this particular time, the rate or the amount of people going there that are causing problems has been reduced 75%. So it is effective if we do it. The other thing is I don't want the city community service director to lose control so it doesn't go wild. I think that ultimately we should give her the administrative ability to use good judgment in dividing and coming up, working with the planning commission to design and to implement these types of structures. I think that we're all aware of this because we see it every day. Go ahead, Gary.
On Motel 6, I was on the planning commission back in 2013, I think it was, and they requested it, and we requested that they control their property better. They requested the fence out to that, so the planning commission actually gave them a variance for that fence all the way around, and it really did help them control the rowdiness and some of their guests and some of the homeless coming through there and everything. So that was definitely something that was planned, and they followed through on it very nicely, and it still works to this day, and it still looks good, I think.
Yeah, it is interesting you say that because on the corner of what was it, Knott and Ball Road, there's the old channel and the old railroad tracks there. What they have done there with the people on the channel is they put double fencing.
I saw that. Yeah.
And double fencing, I was so surprised because that was inundated with individuals and groups of individuals that were camping there. And because they did that, it completely eliminated access to that area, which really helped clean up that area and make it a lot safer. If you look at the beginning of why we have fences in Stanton, it's really interesting because it states the reason for fencing is it shall enhance, it's required for public safety. And so right there in the opening statement of this particular ordinance, the requirement of the fencing is for public safety. And so I support, Councilmember Barrios's request. I think that I would like to see us amend as whatever we can do legally, so we can implement this in the expedient as fast as we can. Go ahead, John.
I want to be careful with this item. I don't know if anybody's gotten lost in downtown Los Angeles, but you'll get to some parts where both sides of the street are black fencing from here to the horizon. And while it is safe for the businesses, it's so safe that it makes you feel unsafe. And so I want to be careful as to how widely this is adopted. There's certain businesses that it's absolutely made sense. And, the Motel 6 is one example, as Gary had brought up, and there's other properties in the city where, you can drive around the city and just find inconsistencies between where there are setbacks, there aren't setbacks, there's brick wall right on the curb in some places where that's not allowed. So I want to be careful on this, in the sense that if there's specific businesses that would like variance, as Gary had mentioned, we could look at them as a case-by-case basis. Maybe that's something that comes out of this discussion. I'm fine with looking at this. The only thing I want to be careful is we don't look like a prison as a result of it. But in terms of allowing businesses better opportunities to protect themselves, that's fine too. But I just want to be careful how widely it is implemented.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. That's why I mentioned a moratorium, number one. Number two, beautification, also controlled by our community development director, and maybe a sunset if we had to do that. So those are things that will protect our interests. I think it's discretionary or, with the city community development director as an administrator of this, and working with our code enforcement and with our public safety team and even our sheriff's department, I think that if we get everybody involved with it, that we can pinpoint the few areas that would make the greatest impact in protecting our city. And you know, if you put it up, it doesn't mean that you can't take it down sometime in the future. And I think the way in which it's designed is great. The thing that really, people say, well, let's just use vegetation or hedges as a barrier. Well, I was having lunch at Harry's Cafe on Chapman and Beach, and they had those beautiful cactus-like plants that have those big pointy flowers, right? And they're about this wide, right? So I'm looking out there, and there's a guy that was not very big, but he was sleeping on one of the leaves. So, you know, having the vegetation on this side is not really conducive to that, but there's no reason why you can't put the vegetation on this side and have the fence along the street line and have it beautification with the flowers and plants on this side. So it's just something that I think that it's something serious. I think it will help us doing right now, and we get on it, and then, and like John, you say, we don't want the whole city to be an iron gate, but I think what we can do now would be very effective.
One more note to that, and you know, you've been on council long enough to see the effects of conforming, non-conforming, appliance of city rules, where maybe it was applicable at one time, but it's not applicable another time, but now you're stuck with it because it's grandfathered. So if we look at you know, these procedures, you know, maybe we give the variance, but maybe it's renewal on an annual basis, or out, you know, a 2-year basis, or however. But I would just like to see some way that we offer some latitude, but we don't go all the way over either.
I did have conversation with the city manager, and she was the one that originally suggested a sunset clause, which I think is amicable. Also, I think it's important that we do not make an ordinance that handicaps our community development director on being the ultimate decision. I think it's good to have somebody that looks out the best interests of the city on something that hopefully will be short-term, but also be effective, or it may beautify some of the areas of the city architecturally. Just a thought.
I'll make one last comment. There's a couple places I can think of, and I'm not going to name them, but where they were granted variances, but they're not being compliant has created blind spots, for instance. You know, this is why, like, you'll see properties where the wall will come down a bit, so you're able to see across the wall when you're pulling out. That way you have visibility of oncoming cars. There's a couple of properties that were granted variances in the past that have become a safety issue, I want to say, at this point. So again, I just want to be careful with it.
Let me throw this question out to our community development director. At this time, a business or commercial that requires a 5-foot setback can't get a variance. Isn't that right?
Generally, that's correct. A variance is usually only issued when there is something physically abnormal or irregular about the property, where it cannot comply with the codes the way any other traditional or regular type of lot would be able to. Usually those types of things are because a site is narrower than most of the other lots within that similar zone or neighborhood, if the grade difference is very significant or different from other lots in the area. So usually there's a unique circumstance to the property that would make it qualify for a variance. If I can ask for some clarification, just again for my notes in regard to the discussion right now, I've heard a lot of discussion about the setback was the primary concern, but if safety is the primary concern, would then that also be a request to increase heights, or is height a part of this discussion as well? The other thing that, while I do very much appreciate the mayor's confidence in my discretion and my, ability to work on this, we do want to make sure that our codes are consistent and fairly applicable. So we would want to have a standard practice for it. We could try to come up with perhaps a minor use permit process where there would be some discretion to it, but there are standard qualifications, maybe within proximity to certain boulevards, storm channels, sensitive types of areas. Are those the types of things that you would like staff to look into, or are there other parameters that we should be looking at?
I think you hit the nail on the head on that. Also, height is very important. I mean, you don't want to put a 3-foot fence up and expect it to be effective. So I think those are things that that would be something that we would ask staff to look into and make recommendations. The governance, of course, if we had to, make an amendment to an ordinance, I think that might be another way in which we could handle it. It could be just a short-term ordinance, amendment, so something that we could put applicable just for a period of time. There's a lot of ways we can go about it, so I think it would be good, for us to have staff sit down and kind of, give us some options.
Okay.
So, any other questions? All right, I'd like to make a recommendation that we ask staff to bring back to us, I don't know whether it's the right word or not, a solution to how we can best regulate and maybe make some changes or availability for fencing in our city to make it safe for our community. And that's, kind of a general statement, but I think we've given enough in our discussions of how we feel about it. Victor, is that something that you would be okay with?
Yes, I would.
Okay. You want to make the motion?
Want to make a motion?
Mr. Shriver, you made that motion already, so do we have a second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, item receives council consensus. Staff will review, create a staff report, and bring it back at a future city council meeting.
Okay, moving on. Item number 15.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 15E is the next item on the agenda. 15E, City Council initiated item, discussion regarding clarification of name usage for city parks / renaming of parks. At the January 14th City Council meeting, Councilmember Warren requested that this item be agendized for discussion. Councilmember Warren is requesting to discuss clarification of name usage for city parks and the renaming of Zuniga Park to Victor Zuniga Park and Stanton Park to Philip Stanton Park. Councilmember Warren?
Thank you, Patricia. I've always been a little bit fascinated with history and specifically local history, but originally this item came to mind after having attended an event being run by a former councilwoman, and people were having issues with identifying which park they were going to. They were told to go to Stanton Park, but there's Stanton Central Park and there's Stanton Park. Which park is it? It's a 50-50 shot. And what I was hoping to do with this item is to effectively, superficially change the name of the park without actually having to change things on the back end. So on the front end, we could change it to Philip, and I prefer Philip A. Stanton since that's a famous part of his name, how should I say. So we can have that differentiation to where we can have effectively Philip Stanton Park and Central Stanton Park, or Stanton Central Park, so we can clarify that matter. And to that extent, Philip Stanton, he's famous for having founded Pacific City that became Huntington Beach, founded Pacific City, or not Pacific City, I have my notes here, but founded Bay City that became Seal Beach, and then was instrumental in the founding of Stanton. He was Assembly member, 37th Assembly Speaker. He has a house that's on the historical list of homes. It's located over in Anaheim. So he has some history in the county, and second to that was Zuniga Park. Now, that park, from everything I've seen records-wise, it's always been called Victor Zuniga Park, but the actual signage just says Zuniga Park. Zuniga, in that way, has been recognized, and it's hard to say how exact this is, but as the first Latino mayor in Orange County. Now, there's complications with determining who's the first, but in several instances, he's been recognized as that. Similarly, Henry Mendez was also recognized as the first Latino council member in Orange County. So, but he hails from the Clover Park neighborhood, so that's an application we could possibly look at in the future, but we honored him 2 years ago. So moving on from that, though, with Zuniga, he was not only on council for 4 years, he was also a planning commissioner for 6, but he was instrumental in, locally in the city with having been president of the Stanton Lions. He was a district governor and president of the League of United Latin American Citizens for many years. So he's done quite a bit in the community. So I think in this way that we're not only clarifying park names, but we're also being able to honor some of our history.
I think we should name Stanton Park something completely different so we don't have this confusion between Stanton Central Park and Phillips Stanton Park. It's still going to be confusing. And I also think we should just wait on this until the Norm Ross thing is completed. Stanton Park currently is redone. Maybe we want to rename that whole area something different. So that would be my 2 cents.
I would be inclined to agree with Councilmember Taylor. And the reason is because last month I had a little Stanton Community Garden event for my students. And I told them Stanton Park, and half of them went to Stanton Central Park. So
Happens
I
all the
think
time.
that renaming it to something different would be good.
And if I may contend that putting Philip in front of Stan becomes the qualifying word, the leading word, the first thing you type in. That's ultimately what I'm trying to fix with this. I understand with timing-wise, though, however, we have the rebranding campaign, and what I'm trying to accomplish in this is that anything we do now will cost a lot less than if we do it later. That we can time this with the rebranding campaign rather than after it. And again, with these changes, it's really only superficial for the moment. It actually has no real impact for the moment, but it would be something that would come in with the rebranding campaign. Now, there has been discussion regarding other parks too. And I've been looking into the history of different parks. Hollenbeck, for instance, was named after Ed Hollenbeck, who was a city planner. Now, you can argue how important the name is on that park. Norm Ross is named after Norman Ross, who was Parks Commissioner for 23 years, and had other influential roles at the time. And I didn't know a whole lot about him until recently. And I understand when it comes to parks names, there was an article a few years back called "What's in a Name?" What's the importance of naming a park after somebody? Because Westminster was going through and naming a bunch of parks after living council members, and that was becoming a concern. So if you were on the dais, you got a park named after you, and that was an issue at the time. But for the sake, I'm just looking to put a little bit of history in to some of the names that are already there.
I agree with Councilmember Warren. However, I think the 2 gentlemen to my left also had a great idea. I think there's a time and a place for everything. I understand that, if we're going to do all this construction, we should have names for things. But one of the nice things is when you do something as important as naming a park, I think it's good that you get the community involved. I don't see any reason why we couldn't have, some input from the people that live in our city about naming that park, the people that use that, even if it comes at a later period of time. I personally knew Norm Ross. He was a wonderful gentleman. He just lived down the street from you, 2 streets over at one time. And I think it's good that we, even if we had a committee, if we're going to start naming parks, I think it's good that we have a committee that's made up of representatives from the community so that we can hear about what they want to do and how they feel about it. There are a lot more other people that I can just roll off my hand right now that probably did more for City of Stanton in the last 75 years than, Phil Stanton. I mean, people like, the Muth family, Carl Karcher, the Ronningbrew family. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. So not only can we take a look at maybe elected people, but we can take a look at people that are actually citizens that founded our community. Way back when we first came into, in 1956, right, John? So I think there's enough people there. So there's a lot of ways to approach it. Historically, involving the community, being fair to everybody, having a contest, getting people involved and excited about it. So I support what you want to do. I think you're absolutely right, but I feel the way that, that Gary and Donald feel. I think we need to really sit down and get more people involved in it rather than making a rash judgment. That's all.
One thing I would contend in that is I think we can look over the different parks we have within the city and make judgments about certain parks here and there. I mean, I don't see us changing Victor Zuniga Park. He was a resident of that neighborhood specifically, and that seems entirely applicable to me. However, if you would like to bring back all the park names, we could see kind of which ones apply here. I mean, again, Hollenbeck Park's been Hollenbeck Park for quite a few decades now, but again, it's named after a city planner. So, I mean, if I would be amenable to looking over the different parks and kind of finding out which ones would be applicable to that. But the last thing I wanted to do was have to suddenly do a sweep of all the park names because we put a poll on Facebook to change 10 park names, and next thing you know, Xenia's department's having to carve stone for every park in the community. I want to be careful of how wide-ranging that is.
When we finish the new park and we have the old park, the easement, which we lease from Edison, which we could lose tomorrow, right? So if we lose the easement and it's named Stanton Park, what's the name of the new park going to be? And is the new park name going to also transfer over for the whole area or not? I think that's something that we should also take a look at.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, for the question. We have spoken to Garden Grove Unified in the process of working on the Norm Ross project. So if we want to change that site, which is the school site's name, they have a procedure that we can explore. I want to say the Parks and Rec Commission, maybe a year or two ago, it had brought up exploring a new name when the new park was built and seeking community involvement from there. There were also discussions about encompassing the whole of the facility, including the easement and the sports park. So there would be a process through the district that we would have to follow to rename it.
One of the things that I've seen historically is that if you were to name all that area the Norm Ross facility or the Norm Ross Park, you could always treat that other by saying that's the Norm Ross Annex. Or, they use that to kind of differentiate, but they keep the same name. So I think we have a lot of choices, and I think John, being the past chairman of the Parks and Rec Department, not department, but the commission, I think that he's probably been attuned to this. So it would be a really good item to bring back with the names, how we're going to go about doing it, if we want to involve the public, and recommendations. I'm sure we all have our own favorite names also, so.
Dave Schomburg Park.
Is there
Do that.
any interest? Obviously, this conversation is generating many different viewpoints, all valid, and you can see how council members, as they come and go, can have very different feelings about who or what parks should be named off of. Would there be interest in having staff establish, research other policies from other cities on park naming and bring back, and that way we don't have this subjectivity and we can have clear standards that we can explain to the community why we chose a particular name. I really appreciate Councilmember Warren's sensitivity to, we're about to embark on this major effort to upgrade the city's infrastructure related to branding, but the good and bad news, the good news is that we have a lot of time, because the bad news is that it's a very expensive project. And so we're taking it piecemeal. As we shared earlier tonight, we're starting with some very small, affordable items such as street sign replacement, but we have plenty of time for staff to research and prepare a policy that we could bring to the council for your review and input, and then we can memorialize that, and that could be our guiding document on future items such as this. So we can expand that to potentially facility naming as well, so parks and public facilities, if the council is interested and if you would like to amend the motion in that manner.
I'd be happy to support that, and let's go about this. We go with a recommendation that Hannah made. Also, let's just take a look at the list of park names. One of the things that had initially got me so invested in this was the inconsistency of seeing how parks were named in their official capacity versus their presented capacity. Because, again, I've seen that Victor Zuniga Park has been referenced for so long, but when you see the actual sign out there, it says Zuniga Park. So on the city side of things, is it actually Victor Zuniga Park? And the sign was put up as a shorthand. So that's one part of all this that I'm really hoping to clarify.
Okay, that being said, is that a motion?
The motion.
And is there a second? Okay. Would you read the motion, please?
I believe the motion is to research other city policies on parks and public facility namings, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And develop ours.
The current listing of cities' parks names.
I just want to be specific in saying that our monument signs may say one thing, but on the back end, we may be saying another thing, and I just want to clarify where we're on in that.
Our new trademark, our new logo and all that, that would be good to visit our landmarks to see if they're effective or not. And, hey, welcome to the crossroads. Used to be crossroads of vacation land. Now it's the crossroads to paradise, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you got that one?
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Hearing none, item receives city council consensus.
15F.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is City Council initiated item, discussion regarding public safety relating to natural or man-made disasters. At the January 14th City Council meeting, Mayor Shriver requested that this item be agendized for discussion. Mayor Shriver is requesting to discuss public safety, public disasters relating to natural or man-made disasters, revisit the city's evacuation plans, and presentation of resources provided by the Orange County Fire Authority and the Orange County Sheriff's Department. Mayor Shriver?
Expanded this a little bit. I took the liberty to take in the 8 cities that surround us. I had a chance to talk to some of the mayors, and all of them are getting the same calls that I've been getting about, oh, are we safe? What's going to happen? What are we going to do? So now's a good time because of the high interest. As we get through this, it'll probably dissipate. So what I took to do is I'm giving the City of Stanton and all of you, along with me, are going to take the lead in this particular forum. It's going to be held in the city of Orlando Park because they have the largest accommodations available during a short period of time. It's scheduled tentatively for February the 13th, so you'll be receiving notice on it. The hosts are going to be, of course, the City of Stanton and the City of Orlando Park, but also all the mayors of the city. I have invited and got confirmation, he's going to come. We're going to make sure it's that date. Will be Brian Fennessy of the Orange County Fire Authority. I was able to get a hold of my friend Calderon, the chairman or the chairperson for the Insurance Commission for the State Assembly, to come down and to talk a little bit about insurance related to disasters. We're going to have representatives from the Orange County Sheriff's Department. Our chief is going to make himself available to talk about things like protecting homes during disasters, evacuation routes, things related to public safety. I've also invited some of the cities that are nearby. There's not many. We just invited the ones that are in the OCFA, but if there's another city that would like to come, they're more than welcome to come, as well as their city managers, staff, et cetera. So we're kind of opening it up to everybody. We haven't really established the program yet because we're still working on it, but we are going to be an integral part of it, and I just want to let you guys know that you're all invited to be with me and also to be participants. I think it's something that is going to be really, really exciting. I think it will take care of our needs, but it's also going to take care of our neighboring needs. I was talking to Stephanie, the mayor of Garden Grove, and she said that the same questions that I've been getting and we've all heard are the same ones she's getting. So I said, well, why have individuals when we can do it all at one time? And so I think that's probably going to be a very exciting evening, and hopefully we can get it by the end of this week. We'll have it all solid, and we'll let you all know what's going on, okay? It'll be from probably 6 to 8 in the evening. Hannah, you want to comment?
Mayor, I didn't realize this was in conjunction with the other effort we were working on, so I would recommend staff not take any action on this item. We don't need to bring this back to council.
Okay, perfect. We'll have to bring it back. Okay, that's kind of an announcement. Okay, next.
Item 15G, City Council initiated item, discussion regarding Planning Commission development. At the January 14 City Council meeting, Mayor Shriver requested that this item be agendized for discussion. Mayor Shriver is requesting to discuss the assurance that the city's Planning Commission is informed of the inner workings of the city's processes in developing the Stanton's business community and ways in which the city can apprise the commission of any changes to local, state, and federal laws. Mayor Shriver?
Thank you. So, Crystal, how many do we have on our Planning Commission right now? 3?
There are currently 4 at this time, but I believe it will be 3 soon. Mm-hmm.
You know, my only thought is that I noticed that we have a lot of council meetings. Is that meetings that we don't hold?
We have 2 meetings, 2 regular meetings a month, and we do tend to cancel some of those meetings.
I noticed there's quite a frequent cancellation.
But I just want to give context to the cancellations, because I don't want members of the public who are not familiar with the process to misunderstand what's happening. So in many cities, planning commissions only meet once a month, such as our Community Services Commission. And the reason some cities move to twice a month is because to be more friendly to developers and give an opportunity if a project happens to come on the calendar so that they can bring them before the Planning Commission sooner. So I just want to clarify, it's not that staff is not doing their job, it's not that there's not enough work, it's that a particular project has not come to the point where it's worth calling both the commission and staff after hours. And so I appreciate and understand what it can look like on paper. One of the things the council may want to consider is that we may want to reduce the number of planning commission meetings to once a month, and then you'll see significantly less cancellations. And then if we need to have a special meeting because there's a project that is very time sensitive that cannot wait until the next meeting, we always have the ability to call a special meeting, just like the council can. So if there's a concern about the perception, I would like the council to consider that. I didn't want that narrative out there that for some reason staff is randomly canceling many meetings.
And that's totally not why I'm doing this. I understand that, and I respect that. The reason I'm doing this is because I think it's important that we use the times when we don't have development on the agenda, that we use it as a training, updating, and educational forum for the Planning Commission. As you know, things change quite frequently, not like in housing and laws and regulations. And I think it's important that if there's something more that we can add to educating and helping in informing our planning commissioners, especially on our city rules and ordinances, especially if we've done changes, why we made those changes. You know, maybe we don't need to do that, but it's just that I hate to see people that we actually appoint for a position not to have an opportunity, to work with the city in certain areas. If it necessitates itself, or if we feel that there's something that we could do, we don't have to have a quorum to do that, because as long as we're not taking action, they can still meet. So that was just kind of my thoughts on that. If they're all been at for 100 years and they feel comfortable, then that's so be it. But there are so many changes happening right now. And I think that we spend might be spending some time, whereas they don't have a full grasp of, what's going on. But maybe I'm wrong.
Sure, if I may, typically it is a little bit difficult to schedule a lot of frequent workshops, educational workshops for the Planning Commission, because the staff is actively working on other applications that have been received, and they're all at various stages and different levels of coordination are going on with that. So then to also put in additional training workshops and those types of things, it's a little bit difficult. However, we do, just as a general practice, try to schedule anywhere from 2 to 4 throughout the entire year. Usually there is one legislative update that happens. Typically, the last few years tends to be focused on housing legislative updates that are going to impact the community. We do coordinate usually with the city attorney's office to have that done. This last year, we did notice that a lot of the applications we're currently working on will have some traffic impact analyses that are going along with those applications. So in this last year, we did coordinate with our engineering department to have a special study session on why we're doing the traffic impact analysis, what is important to look at, the summary, and how to digest all of that data that they're going to be receiving. So we did only have 2 last year, but we do usually try to schedule about 2 to 4. Typically, there always is one dedicated to legislative updates, and then anything else that we know will be upcoming for the commission. These types of things, in my experience, again, it's usually depending on what the upcoming focus is going to be. So if we have a lot of code amendments, then we'll usually do a lot of upfront training sessions to prep them when all of this information is being presented, or when we are able to go full gear at our general plan amendment. We're going to be doing a lot of preemptive educational workshops and trainings along those lines as well. So right now, we don't have a lot of trainings planned. We are going to be focusing on another legislative update. We had a lot of things that kind of went into effect this year, and we're always looking for additional, but usually I don't like to commit to any more than 2 to 4, again, just depending on what they're going to be looking at coming up.
Well, if there's new members, which there will be, I think that might be a good opportunity to do that. But one of the things, so we don't spend too much staff time, is that you can bring people in from the outside, their expertise in an area, either from a government, group, or people that specialize. I mean, like, how many people on our plan commission know who's handling our plan checks, how that process works? What's the shortfalls, what's the long falls of it, how effective is it? No, just things like that. I'm not real sure. Maybe everything's wonderful. I don't know. But I just thought if we have an opportunity to make it informative, if we have an opportunity to make it interesting and to give them a challenge, then I just thought maybe we might want to take a look at it. That's all. Thank you. Go ahead.
If I could also offer, we have very limited staff. We have a very full plate of work to do. I understand and appreciate the desire to have the planning commissioners be more red in their area. I know a lot of cities are very picky about the planning commissioners they appoint to the planning commission exactly for that reason. They really try and look for people who have some type of background or expertise in that area. I also understand we have a very limited pool of applicants, so we may not always be able to get that specific experience matchup. I will say one of the great things about learning these days is there's so much information online. I think that we've all seen. And Crystal and I have talked about these opportunities and how we can share them more with the commission. We have, for example, the American Planning Association has an online library. And I would rather have the commissioners go through that type of training. I think there's a little bit of concern sometimes when we bring in individuals from outside the city, because every city is very specific in their expectations, in their community vision, and how decisions are made, and even the expectations of the council of the planning commission. So I'm hesitant, and it would still take staff time because we would want to vet any presentation. We would want to review anything they're presenting on unless it was extremely technical. But I think it would be a great opportunity to expand online learning resources to our planning commissioners. It's pretty low cost. It looks like if we share, I think we can share a login. It's less than $200 for a year's worth of access to the American Planning Association's vast library of resources, videos, and documentation. And Crystal can continue to offer the 2 to 4 training sessions based on updated legislation and specific topics that will be of value for the projects coming before the commission. And then commissioners can go in and pick and choose and learn as much or as little as they want to on these other topics. And I think that might be a solution that addresses both your desire for the planning commission to be better educated as well as balancing staff's existing workload.
Yeah, and I wasn't thinking of other cities coming in, because I know that there's about 80% of the cities that they're not as functional as we are. And so we don't want to learn bad habits. I was thinking about people with expertise in housing, maybe ADU, county people, things like that. So I wasn't thinking about city people. I think that's an excellent recommendation because they can do that at their leisure. I think that would be money well spent. And I think also what's good about it is it updates them on questions that they might have so that they can better serve us. I don't think I've ever gotten a recommendation from, how many people have ever talked to your planning commissioner? Frequently? Yeah. Gary?
I talked to Joni Ash.
Well, she's a vet, that's why, that's good.
I might have a little recommendation, not sure if this helps, but.
Sure, go ahead.
So when we did our public safety committee appointments, one of the public safety members reached out and they basically said that they felt like they didn't know the responsibilities. So I reached out to the city manager and she did like a little onboarding. I think it was not only for public safety, but for other committees, right? Is that something that we do every time? Or was this just if there's turnover? So maybe, I remember when I was a commissioner, I got into the role, and apart from like the paperwork I received, I wasn't really told like the full extent of the governing body. So I think that like just straight off from the beginning, if we get that info in, then at least they could like have a mindset of being more proactive when we turn in that info over to them, like from the planning.
I believe what we did was we invited, after the last appointment round, I believe we invited all the commissioners, and I think primarily the new ones attended and maybe one existing one, so it was voluntary, but we did do that orientation for both, or all three of both the commissions and the committee. So we can definitely hold that again this year and then supplement with online training as well.
I think that when we do our recruitment too, along the same lines, to have a job description. This is what your job is, and this is how you go about doing it. I think that sometimes, like you say, they go in, they have no clue. And that's what sometimes is bad about government. People that lead it, it takes you a long time to understand what you're supposed to be doing and how to do it, and then you're gone. So I think that any type of what we're doing, information, especially the online, I think that's the way to go. That'd be great.
Sorry, if I may, we have implemented that new practice for the Planning Commission. We only, since I've been here, had one new planning commissioner, but we do have a meeting where the city attorney attends along with myself, and we provide information on the responsibilities, the roles, all of the legal information necessary, and then I bombard them with all of the data that they're going to be presented with and how they're supposed to look and assess all of that information. And then we do follow-ups with them, again, just to make sure that they're aware that they have resources available. But we do with new planning commissioners, we have an onboarding process to give them very clear understanding of what their role is.
I was just going to add that onboarding process, I mean, is important. I mean, ultimately, the extent in which the commissioner wishes to be involved and how informed they wish to be is obviously going to be paramount. When I became a county commissioner, I made it my goal within the first 2 months to visit every regional park. You know, I can't say that a contemporary would be in the same position to want to do that, but it helps to have this information because there's a lot to keep up on. And you know, we all see the commentary out in the public sphere. You know, some people don't like ADUs, and they think they can get on a planning commission and just put an end to the ADUs, and it's just not going to happen. You know, so that. Getting that preface of what's within scope, what's not within scope, you know, what's state law, you know, what's the role of a city and the state altogether. You know, a little bit of public admin training goes a long way in that, because a lot of people don't understand the relationship between cities and the states they're within.
That being said, I think that we'll take the recommendations of Crystal with the different programs that she has the opportunity to do. I think that whomever our new board members are that we appoint, that's kind of why I have 15H is, we can probably skip that because I can cover that right now. What it is that I wanted to have a good liaison between who we appoint and have an ongoing relationship as far as us informing them what's going on and them informing us what's going on. And I think that we can do that by letting them make their own decision. I've never told any of my appointments how to vote. I've never even given them a recommendation or my opinion, but I always think it's important that we discuss the topic so that they clearly understand what it's all about. And you can simply do that by saying, do you have any questions? And if they don't, then fine. But I think having an ongoing relationship, especially with the people that you handpicked, is going to be very important to the success of our different boards. In the past, it's like they seem a little distant. I like to reel them in a little bit so that we have more of a joint thing. In fact, it wouldn't be bad maybe to have a commissioner from each of those, maybe every periodically come in and give us an update of how their commission's doing. I think that would be good, not only for the public, but for us.
We've done that.
Long time.
No, it wasn't that long ago.
I'm talking about, we have 3, and maybe we could get each one quarterly or something. Anyway, I think it's better to build communication, that's all. So that being said, that was my little thing on 15H. So we can go ahead and review that. I think we all realize now that it's important that they know what their responsibilities are and that we do some kind of interaction with them as we go through it. So go ahead, Madam Clerk, I'm ready to move on.
Receive and file for 15H. We are now on 15I, City Council initiated item, discussion regarding award of single source contracts. City Council, or Council Member, at the January 14 City Council meeting, Mayor Shaver requested this item be agendized for discussion. Mayor Shaver is requesting to discuss award of single source contracts, as well as how the city awards bids to local businesses for both building and supplies. Mayor Shaver.
Thank you. Probably HD, I can ask you this. I know that we have certain regulations that are governed when we go out for bid or for RFP or request for proposals. But I think also that if there's a single source contract, I was wanting to get, does that, I'm on a lot of boards where we can do single source contracts because we can shape where our needs are to fit our needs, and that we can actually award that locally to people that are qualified to do that and keep the business local. That's the first part. And the second one is awarding bids to local businesses for building and supplies. I think that is determined with a amount, and I'm not sure if we can set that amount or not, but those are why I brought that up. I think anything we can do to help our business community is in our best interest. So that was it. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm aware that the city's purchasing policy does allow for single sourcing in certain instances, specifically if there is a certain purveyor and it's very hard to, get that type of service, right? And so I don't know off the top of my head the specifics of it, but we do have a provision for single source. Similarly, we do have additional considerations for purchasing building or supplies in our code, and this reminds me of an item that former Councilmember Warren brought up, or I think at that point, the vice chair at that point, where we actually gave more consideration and an extra percentage for local businesses. So certainly we can come back and give more specifics on single source when the city uses that, as well as the consideration that the city gives in terms of local businesses and additional considerations.
Just to tag on to that, so the city spent a significant amount of staff time and city attorney time reviewing the updated purchasing contract and guidelines in 2022 when I arrived at the city. It was really important to me. It's been important to me in every city I've been because it's really one of the backbones to keeping the city out of trouble, to make sure our purchasing and contracting is unbiased and based on very clear criteria. So yes, what the city attorney stated is correct. The existing purchasing and contract guidelines do allow for single source contracts in certain exceptions. Usually it has to be a very specialized service, so you're just like, nobody else can do this, or it has to be they have a very unique knowledge of the city, or for some reason they've been doing it historically. It would cost significant amount of money to transition, so we're asking council. So you have to make this finding. The council has to actually make a finding that's documented so that we don't get in trouble later on, that you're agreeing and allowing outside of the normal processing or outside of the normal purchasing procedure, recognizing that sole purchasing is unique. The mayor may also be referencing in some of the other agencies he works with are piggybacking, which is something that we recently incorporated into the city's purchasing and contract guidelines. So that means if another city or OCFA or SAN or whoever has gone through a competitively public procurement process to identify a vendor, and you can get the same price that they allowed that process to award, and there's nothing in the existing contract that prohibits piggybacking from their side. So we've taken advantage of that in a number of situations. That saves us a lot of time. And a lot of times Stanton is not necessarily the biggest purchaser. So we can piggyback off of, for example, the city of LA. So if they have a huge, purchasing power, then we can go in and say, hey, we want these same widgets for this same price. Will you honor it? And oftentimes we're able to benefit off of that. So that may also be some of the instances where it looks like sole source, but it really is somebody else's publicly available procurement process that was gone through. And then in terms of the local business, what did we call it? Local business advantage, basically, yes, we did recently increase that to 10%. So that means if they have a purchase price, and I can't remember the threshold it's under, they get a little bit of a credit, and the thought there was that we get the sales tax back. So we can, it was 5%, so we can increase it a little bit because we'll still get the majority back in sales tax. But again, that's at a very specific dollar limit. And honestly, those types of purchases, we try very hard to make in-house. Like, we go to our local Home Depot as often as we can. We go to our local Dollar Tree. We go to as many of our local stores as we can for those types of purchases. Anything above that price, it really is a best practice for us to be good stewards of the community's fiscal resources and do a competitive purchasing process.
Now, do we expand that if we buy online because the point of sale was Stanton?
So if we knew that there was a business in Stanton who had an online website, are you saying, so we would have to know, and then we go onto their website and give them that local advantage?
No, I know that when you buy something online, and you guys are all gurus at this, I'm not, but if I was to buy something online,
Like Amazon?
yeah, Amazon, then they charge the tax at Stanton would, and is that a mechanism where we could also keep tax dollars local?
So the state of California, I think 2 years ago, changed how online deliveries are taxed. And I believe now it's wherever it's delivered is who gets the tax. Is that correct, Michelle? I think the physical location that the delivery is made is where the tax is credited to. And that, I believe, comes after the fact, after they calculate. And so that's always in arrears. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay.
So that could be another mechanism.
Yes, and especially, you know, these days with the prevalence of Amazon and all those, you'll see, if you go through our warrant register, there's a number of Amazon charges, especially related to community services, activities, and supplies.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, next, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 15J, City Council initiated item, discussion regarding review of the city's general plan and any amendments.
Excuse me for a second. We're going to take a 5-minute break.
Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead.
City Council at this time will recess for 5 minutes at 9:06 PM.
Jay?
Mr. Mayor, we are reconvening at 9:13 PM. Mr. Mayor, Council, we are on item 15J, which is City Council initiated item, discussion regarding review of the city's general plan and any amendments. At the January 14th City Council meeting, Mayor Shriver requested that this item be agendized for discussion. Mayor Shriver is requesting to discuss review of the city's general plan and any amendments made since its most recent implementation. Mayor Shriver?
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The reason I put this on here is I think it's important, especially since we have 2 new council members, for us to, again, review our general plan, some of the amendments, specific plan, things like that, plus anything recent that I may not be aware of, or Donald, or same thing with Gary. Too often times government do these types of plans, and then they put them in a book and put them on the shelf. And so I'm not exactly sure, I can't remember, was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago we did it?
I don't remember being here for a presentation to the council on the general plan, so 3 years ago, if that's what you remember.
I think it's more like 5, but I'm guessing. So I think it's important that we do have, do you want our next one scheduled?
So I think this is a big effort for us to prepare this, so we could bring this to you maybe middle of the year. I would say give us until after the budget is done. That's what all of us are focused on right now, which will be adopted in June, and then we can bring this to you in the summertime.
In the meantime, do we have this on something that could be emailed? Do we have a copy of it?
Of
Or
course.
Is it a big book, or what is it?
The general plan is on the website, so we can send out an email with a direct link to the
That's
general
what I
plan.
thought. So if you haven't read it, it's pretty lengthy.
It's a light
It's going
read.
to take you 17 and a half days, so. Anyway, it's there for you. I just want to point that out. Also, I'm pleased to see that in about June, right? And we'll be getting into our new, working on our amendments and what we're doing. So I think it's a happy time again. So just thought I'd throw that out. Next, please.
15K.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 15K is City Council initiated item, discussion regarding adding items to an agenda by the City Council. At the January 14th City Council meeting, Mayor Shriver requested that this item be agendized for discussion. Mayor Shriver is requesting to review the process in which the mayor and/or city council members can place an item on a city council meeting agenda. Mayor Shriver.
Thank you. We have a process now where I think somebody writes one of these things here, right? And we vote on it. Do we still do that?
We're doing it right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So that is the current process.
You represent a district, and you should have the right to put something on the agenda that you feel is important, not only to the district that you serve, but also for the city. And so I think it's important that each and every one of you have an ability to put something on the agenda without having us all vote on it. In other words, if you want to put something on the agenda, I know, Gary, one time you were talking about a certain policy, I'm not sure if it was fireworks or something, and it wasn't voted to go on the agenda. And so I think it's important that we allow each of you to put it on the agenda, because if it's on the agenda, it's going to come to us anyway, and at that point, we can either do nothing or move on. But the way I've always done business is I feel that each of you should have the ability to put something on the agenda without it being prohibited by a majority of the council. Now, I don't know how you feel about that. I don't know how you want to discuss it. I'm just throwing that out to you because that's the way I feel about it. I've always felt that way about it. In the olden days, we were able to put things on the agenda just by putting it on the agenda if we asked to have it through the clerk. I don't think there's any legal ramifications that it has to be done that way, except I think we might have, do we have that in our policy?
Yes, it is adopted in City Council Rules of
So it would
Order,
be just a change in policy to where we allow that.
if that's the council's decision.
Is there anything illegal about that?
No, Mayor and Council, the only requirement that the Brown Act includes is that, that items on the agenda be discussed. And so, for example, we'd want either somehow it get to the city clerk first, or somehow there's a consensus to put it on the agenda. But just as long as it's on an agenda, it can be discussed.
Okay, so that being said, we'll start at that end and we'll work our way down. I just wanted to pick your brain and tell me how you feel about it. Go ahead, John.
Regarding this one, this item is on the agenda without any conflict from any members of the council as it is, because we don't have to receive a to put it on a future agenda. What you're suggesting is that we could email staff to have it placed on an agenda, I could see that streamlining, but I don't see council currently prohibiting one another from putting something on the agenda. I mean, I've seen it in other cities where, yeah, you need 1 or 2 votes to make something happen. But I think we have a rather lenient policy as is. And ultimately, staff has some discretion about when we take up voting items in the future. If we all suddenly have a brilliant idea in the same week, it's going to be ultimately just how we're talking about this right now when we're setting the roadmap for the future. So I'm trying to figure out what is the problem we're attempting to solve here.
Just trying to make it simpler for an individual council member without going through writing down on a piece of paper and having it voted on to be put whatever they think is important to them on the agenda for discussion. Remember, by doing this, we're not approving anything. We're just giving a chance to be discussed.
Even as a, yeah.
Just, yes, but there's it's very similar to what we do now. This is just streamlines it, that's all.
Commissioner, I had to fill out a piece of paper.
Okay, go ahead, Don.
So I would really like to see what our other cities are doing around us, because I may be mistaken, but I think that there is some conversation around this in Cyprus as well. I'm not sure if that's the case, but I think that I would like to kind of like talk about this more and see if we have to knock off this extra step, because the only thing I can imagine that this, step of getting a second guarantees is that, so the step in which a council member seconds somebody's agendizing item, right? That process is the one that you're trying to streamline, right?
We get the approval of another council member,
Right.
and then we vote on it.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's
I just want the ability for each.
So what I'm saying is that that's supposed to ensure that there's at least one other person that's there to, at least contend with this item or talk about it. I wouldn't be against it. I just really want to see what other cities
No,
are
I
doing, because I just,
understand. And the other reason I'm doing that is, what if nobody seconds it, and they never get a chance for him to get it on the agenda till it comes, and we have it at a council meeting, and then maybe he or she can persuade everybody that this is the right thing to do, that's all. I mean,
I think it's a valid concern. I just wanted.
yeah, no, I understand. In fact, John brought up a good point. One time when I was talking to him in the past, he said, well, you know, some guy's been trying 25 times to get something on the agenda, and he keeps getting turned down, or she keep turning it down. Well, this still gives the person that feels so strongly about something the ability to put it on the agenda, that's all. And do we have, we used to, in the olden days, I don't even know if it's still this, the mayor can agendize something. I don't know if the mayor still do that?
I believe it's with discussions with the city manager, but I'd have to look at the rules of order to confirm that fact.
Yeah, because that was, in the
However,
past, the mayor could put something on the agenda.
And that could have been the case. The reason why this process was implemented, because there was a change in the dais where there was becoming an issue of adding an item. And so the process was created to eliminate that kind of streamlining, if you would.
Yeah, but that's when we had the rotating mayorship, so it really didn't make much difference.
I'm not sure of the reason why, but I
I mean,
just know that
the
there was.
only of my worry is that somebody will infinitely agendize one item and just get infinitely shut down. That's the only thing I can see.
Well, then we get rid of them. No, I just want to make this opportunity available. We don't have to make the decision tonight. We can bring it back. That's what I want. Maybe we can see the pros and cons. Let's let our city clerk historically what we've done and why we might have changed it if we did change it, and then we can make that decision, if you guys are okay with that.
Recommendation that Torres made. Yeah, let's see what our neighbors are doing. That doesn't harm anybody. That's an easy choice there.
Council uses the term neighbors. Can you be more specific? Because that could greatly increase our workload.
I'm trying to figure out what this guy is doing right here.
If you want to say like North Orange County cities,
Yeah,
that would be
North Orange County
sufficient.
cities, yeah.
Not Huntington Beach and not Santa Ana. I mean Anaheim, okay?
North Orange County.
Okay, next
typically.
one. We are now on 15L.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City Council initiated item, discussion regarding Community Development Department procedures. At the January 14 City Council meeting, Mayor Shriver requested that this item be agendized for discussion. Mayor Shriver is requesting to discuss methods in which the City Council can assist the Planning Department in serving the city's businesses and residents in expediting process times for applications and streamlining all phases of community development by either increasing the number of personnel and/or subcontracting out a variety of departments' needs. Mr. Shriver.
Thank you. The reason I put 15L on is because I feel that we have probably one of the best community development departments compared to many of the other cities that I deal with. This is a tough department because of the responsibility, especially working with planning, or actually with planning and development. I think that one of my concerns is we have made some adjustments, is how we send our plans out to be checked, the time that takes to get them back, communication, things along the lines of letting the people that come into our city understand completely what their responsibilities are up front. I think that our city feels the same way that I do, especially our department, that we don't want anybody to be surprised. You know, if you put a lot of money down and you're starting through a process and you get to a point, and then somebody that we contract to the outside decides, either makes a mistake or comes back with a new requirement, for whatever reason, I'm not going to speculate, then it causes a slowdown in the process. One of the things that we did implement is we used to have a very short list of providers that we recommend they choose from. Well, everybody used to choose the cheapest guy, so his workload was like this, and so the project never really it took a long time. So now we've expanded that list, which has been very successful. I think also, as I look in our department, we are a very small department, but our workload is very high. And so I would like to take the liberty to let our community development director and our city manager see if there's some way that we could help with the personnel in that department, maybe either adding or working some part-time, or I don't know, some way in which it would help with the workload there. Also, I think one of the other things that would be important too is that we are aware of, process and communicate. I think communication. The thing is if you're doing something for a developer and you have the city and the developer, that's great because there's a good communication. But then you bring out a contract guy out here. So now you have here, here, and here, and sometimes it gets lost in the transition. Not all the time, but sometimes it does. And if there's any way to make that communication more effective and more workable, I think that that's something too. The only reason I'm bringing that to your attention is because I see on a daily basis where there is sometimes a breakdown in communication, the relationship with the third party that works with us. And, I just think that if it's something that we can do to improve it or make it, or help our staff, make it easier on our staff, then I would like to make sure that we take a look at that, that's all. Go ahead, Hannah.
Mayor, this is a conversation I have with the entire executive team during the budget season, where I ask all the departments for their personnel requests, and I can tell you, every single department head would love to have more people. We have not been able, we fund them as we can to try and bring you a balanced budget. I already have some projections, so I think there won't be enough surplus to fund people, but if the council wants to, we absolutely can find other pots of money. It may not result in a balanced budget, but this is already a process we go through. So if the council is open, I think I've been very sensitive the last 2 years to bring you a balanced budget and not go into deficit spending. So if you're open to that, I'm happy to bring you personnel requests. They all have personnel requests that I have tried to manage within the city's budget. So absolutely, if you would like to see those, we will include those as part of the decision packages for each department.
I don't want to plagiarize that because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but
Then only Crystal's requests will be brought now.
And I understand that, but there's also a cause and effect, which we're all aware of. Like, there's a department that actually, some departments actually, we end up making money because whatever the long run or the end product is going to be beneficial to the community. Whether it's a new business, a new commercial, whether it's a new housing, whether it's, you know what I'm saying? Some are non-revenue generating, okay? I'm not saying they're not as important, Zinnia, but I think that there's some things that we might be able to help with. Also, you can't get volunteers to work in the community development department, where in other departments, you might be able to be lucky enough to get some volunteers to help you. So I understand that we are underpaid. I understand that we're overworked. And I understand that we can always use more help. And I appreciate the fact that we do have Hannah overseeing that, because I think that if there's a budget that's been coming for us very shortly, if we can make some adjustments to make things easier or more efficient, she will find it for us. I want to bring this to you because I experience this every day in our community with the people that call me. Go ahead, Gary.
Could you give some examples maybe of the people calling you, of what they're complaining about that relates to the community development department?
Let me qualify this. There's two sides to every story. Fortunately, I always take the side of the city because I know 99.9% of the time we're right. However, the other side that are having the difficulty, sometimes they have legitimate concerns because it's something that's out of our control, especially if we have a third-party interest going to it. As an example, sometimes they don't give a development, not saying the city, but the people we contract with, the full picture or scope of what the requirements are. Now, I've tried to help some of these folks, and dealing with an outside consultant, I can see where there were errors and omissions have been made to some. Now, if you get a little bit of them, but you have a lot of small ones, it adds up to a big one. And so I'm just trying to improve what we do as far as service goes. And I think we all want to do that. That's why I put this on here, because I'm trying to find out if there's some way we can become more efficient, we can help our staff work, make it easier on them, and then provide the services and demands of the people that we serve. That's all. Go ahead.
Okay, as far as I see, staff
Please, sir,
are,
can you speak up?
as I see, our staff members already have things they would like. They communicate with Hannah about things they would like. Maybe there's some pass-through about passing through what's reasonable and putting it on the budget proposal process. And we could see in there, I mean, but I want to be careful of feeling like we're making some departments feel less valued than others, or some departments feeling overvalued. I would, an ongoing concern with the ordinance we passed last month. It'd be nice to double the public safety department for 2 months and then reassess after 2 months, but we're a small city. We work with what we got, too.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, as the community development director, I definitely appreciate that there are lots of, in every city that I've been in, community development tends to get the most negative attention than any other department, and that's essentially just the nature of what we do. We're the department that has to tell people no sometimes, or we're the ones that make their project last longer than they believe that it should for various different reasons, process, timelines, different legal requirements that we have. Communication, I absolutely agree, is the most important part of the community development department. We do try to implement as best we can different types of communication efforts, and we've had discussion about trying to update a lot of our handouts, making sure that people fully understand process. Many of the people that come in, we still deal with residents, DIYing things in their homes, and they have no idea what the permitting process or plan check process is. So as best we can, we do try to take the time to explain that to them. There's a lot of technical code items that need to be provided in plans that not everybody is aware of. So when we can, if we've seen something go through, unfortunately, twice through the plan check process, and they still have corrections coming back, we do try to reach out to explain to them and facilitate that communication going forward. It does take time. We are a small staff, so to have that extra communication, but when we are able to do that, we do find that it does open up a lot of the problems. We're able to resolve a lot of it. I definitely understand that in all of the departments, because our department does coordinate with everybody else. Engineering reviews a lot of our plans. Finance is definitely very crucial in what we do. We do coordinate with everybody. So, and we, again, understand that they also have personnel and staffing needs. And while I do understand and I appreciate that, I don't unfortunately think that adding more bodies, I would absolutely love it, but adding more bodies I don't think immediately resolves our problem, because there's still a process that we need to go through. But again, we are happy to work through the budget process like every other department, and make any requests that are necessary at that point. One of the other items also is that we have had transition in the department, which again adds to delay as we're bringing new people on board and having to make up for delays that were caused that way. So right now, our focus is, again, trying to just get our vacancies filled so that we can get fully operating the way that I believe that we should be. And I think at that point, I'll have a better understanding of what we need at that time when we are fully staffed and fully functional.
Thank you. And again, this is an awareness issue, not issue, but it's an awareness thing for me. I just wanted to share that with all four of my colleagues here. I think that we all want to do the very best we can, not only for the people that work for us, but whether you're management or whether you're the staff that's doing the groundwork. But I know that we can all improve in what we do. And so as we go through the process, I think it's good that as we go through our budget and we go through our costs and we go through personnel with our city manager, that we listen to what those recommendations are and see if we can't, do better with what we do, with what we have. That pretty much ends my 75-page report. I want to thank you for indulging me tonight. These are just some topics that I think are important to each and every one of you, and so that's why I put them on there. Some are more important than others, but I think there's something of interest for each of you, whether it's one or two of them, and I wanted to get those discussed. I am very pleased with the council that we have. I've seen a gazillion of them, other cities, and I think that right now that we're a solid team that's going to be working together in the best interests of the city. And I think that the information that I hopefully share with you tonight gives you some of the thoughts of how I feel about certain topics of interest. I also appreciate the fact that we have this opportunity for you to bring your information. So let's keep the communication open. As long as we don't talk to more than two of us and we don't rule on anything, I think we'll be okay. But I have a really good feeling that it's going to be a great 2 years. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we do have 2 additional items under City Council initiated item that we need to discuss because they have been agendized. So if you don't mind, we'll let the city clerk lead us through those next 2 items.
I lost that page.
Yes.
That's right away.
I think it's after this one, right? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before you, we have item 15M, City Council initiated item, discussion regarding review of the future of the Tina Pacific neighborhood. At the January 14 City Council meeting, Mayor Shaver requested that this item be agendized for discussion. Mayor Shaver is requesting to discuss the review of the future of the Tina Pacific neighborhood and assisting the residents with that district, within that district, excuse me.
Thank you.
Mr. Shaver.
I put this on here because I think that at some point in the future, when we get through some issues, or not issues, but we get through the development of what we're trying to do, you know, I think at some point it's going to be good for us to sit down and take a serious look at what is going to happen to Tina Pacific, because right now we have absolutely nothing going on there. We have no real substance, but we do have people that live there that we should try to consider taking good care of and trying to improve their quality of life. That's what it's all about.
I'd like to go see that area. I would like to go see that area.
Okay, and so Councilmember Torrey said maybe we could go on a tour, make that available so we can, I try to drive through every once in a while. It's changed quite a bit, but I think that some of the things that we hear about, we can actually visually see. At some point in the future, we're going to have to make a decision of what we want to do in Tina Pacific. Now, it may be a year off, it may be 5 months off, it may be 6 months off, I don't know. But the thing that we have to concern ourselves with is that we do have the people that are living there, and they are our residents, and we will make sure that their quality of life is what they deserve. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
And staff is happy to facilitate tours. If there are council members who are interested, we would only take 2 at a time, just to make sure that we don't violate any Brown Act. So which of the council members are interested in a tour? Okay, thank you. Councilmember
Okay, and then my
Mayor
favorite
Pro Tem
item
Torres.
is the, I think at some point, because the 4th of July is just around the corner, and out of respect to Councilman Taylor, I would like for us to maybe agendize a study session so that we can look at the latest technologies, laws, resources, and eliminating, which we probably won't be able to completely do, but to at least reduce the illegal fireworks for this upcoming 4th of July. And I think, Mr. Taylor, you...
Do you want to roll that into the one I've already agendized
Yeah.
for March?
Yeah.
Yes, which we have on the docket for March.
Because there is some...
I don't want to make it concentrate on dealing with supply and going after demand areas similar to what we've done with Safe Streets, just flooding the area with enough resources where we could stop that. Now, if you want to change the laws and things, I'm not sure.
No, I
Do
don't
we
want
have enough
to, no, I don't
time?
want to change the laws. What I want to do is I want to make us all aware of the new technologies that are available.
Okay.
And some of the things are now legal for us to do that weren't legal in the past for, in other words,
I'm
to,
not aware of those.
for prevention.
So, okay, if you have some new ideas.
I mean, there
I'd like
have
to
been,
hear.
there actually have been some court cases where people with drones have won, identifying people breaking the law.
Okay.
But we have to talk to our sheriff's department about that. But those are some new things that are coming down the line, okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
One of the things that I would recommend doing is relooking our signs from last 4th of July. I know that we had a little bit of hiccups with those, but I know that that was an attempt to educate, our people on where to call, what are the fines. I think that we should be expanding the way that we, outreach to citizens to let them know how to report illegal fireworks and stuff like that.
I think that's an item for the discussion. Go ahead, John.
I remember Councilmember Taylor bringing this up, and he referenced me, and then when you brought up this item initially, I would like to be able to see administratively what we do regarding private properties and the sales of fireworks. For instance, if there's a liquor store that's selling illegal fireworks, I mean, as a city, what can we do regarding that? How do we find them? I've seen the individual fines, but if this is a business, I mean, how would we punish a business? I don't think that's really an element we've really taken up before. So I will commend Councilmember Taylor for bringing it up, but I just want to make sure we stay on top of that.
That being said, let's go ahead and have our city manager figure out when we can implement the study session that you requested. Make sure we have it in a timely manner, so whatever we come up with, we can implement it.
Yes, we'll have time.
Because if we don't start now, we won't have anything by the 4th. You'll always come up with these great ideas. Well, it's 2 weeks before they start selling.
Those don't work.
So it's never too early. Okay, Gary?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Items from the city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I have no items tonight.
Items from our executive director.
Yes, good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the council. As two of our council members stated earlier this evening, staff has also been receiving community concerns over immigration enforcement. And so I wanted to allow Community Services Director Zenia Bobadilla to share some of the resources that staff can direct residents to.
Thank you. So we have equally received phone calls, especially at our Family Resource Center. We are collaborating with our regular community-based organizations and partners and county contacts to provide information and resources relevant to the issue, legal assistance. So if there are inquiries in the community, I would advise to direct them to the Family Resource Center, and we can connect them from there. Thank you.
So let me just throw this out. So I'm of the opinion, maybe I'm wrong, that if we just do what we've always done, and it's always been successful, and there's been no complications and nothing negative, I think if we continue down that path, I don't foresee us having any problems, because, I mean, this has never been a concern in our community over the years, because whatever we do seems to be working really well. I don't know.
A lot of just questions regarding information that's out, to Councilmember Warren's point earlier, just to clarify maybe some misinformation or things that are maybe hearsay instead of actual facts.
No, I'm not saying don't educate. I'm just saying I don't think we need to do any changes in whatever we do as far as regulatory. That's
Sure, we haven't changed our operations. It's just information from our partners.
okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead, you got some more? Just one? Okay. Orange County Sheriff's Department. Thank you for your patience, Chief.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. In December of 2024, our deputies responded to 1,789 calls for service, which is an average of 59 a day, and observed 615 violations of law and conducted over 400 patrol checks in the city. Deputies made 82 arrests, which included 28 felony bookings, 40 misdemeanor bookings, 14 warrant bookings, and 2 DUI bookings. The Stanton Motor Deputy issued 217 traffic citations, and deputies observed and handled the following criminal activity in the month of December. There was 1 criminal homicide, 3 robberies using different types of weapons, 32 violent assaults, 5 burglaries, 48 thefts, and 4 stolen vehicles. The response times, priority 1 was 4 minutes, 11 seconds. The priority 2 average was 18 minutes and 2 seconds, and the priority 3 was 32 minutes and 46 seconds. Stanton investigations in the month of December closed 73 cases, 47 were opened. And the special enforcement team made 11 probation/parole contacts, 20 prostitution-related contacts, and this resulted in, just for the SET team, for 6 felony arrests, 26 misdemeanor arrests, 6 warrant arrests, 1 arrest related to pimping and pandering, and 4 investigative referrals. And this concludes my presentation. I will be happy to answer any questions.
Are you able to now arrest people on shoplifting smaller amounts? And what is that amount now?
Prop 36 basically took a cumulative effect. So if you've been arrested for the same crime, so if it's commercial burglary, yes, now instead of it just being a misdemeanor, there is a threshold where it meets the felony, so the deputies do make the arrest. And we have been very active utilizing that new tool.
Thank you.
To follow up on Councilmember Taylor's question, do you work with other agencies to say that X amount in Anaheim was stolen, X amount in Stanton was stolen, same day? Does that cumulative?
So, yes, if it was the same day and it was hours apart, it would be up to our investigators to put those things together. But by another agency making an arrest, obviously arresting the person and getting that information into the system. If it was last week and they're released from custody and they're back into our city, yes, that's an easy one. But if somebody has hit one of our local retailers and our investigative unit figures out that one of our neighboring cities has open cases going, they're going to contact that investigative detail and they're going to try to close the loop on it real quick so that we can enhance the charges.
Okay, and then the only thing I wanted to say on top of that was at the beginning of this council meeting, we watched Santa Siren, and I wanted to thank Deputy Galindo and Deputy Skelly, who consistently have come out every year and have prioritized making sure that they're here. So I really appreciate them coming out.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'll pass the word to them.
I think priority 3 calls were 33 minutes, right?
Yes, we were at 32 minutes, 46 seconds.
But I think that's probably one of the lowest numbers that I can remember in a long time. Am I right?
As far as it getting the time that somebody has to wait, that is quite a while.
Yeah, I think that is an unbelievable improvement over the past few months or even last year. I will want you to compliment the deputies on the job that you've done recently on the Union Pacific Railroad. The infringement on the neighboring businesses has been horrifically horrible. And I know that sometimes it gets a little frustrating when you actually clear the individuals off the tracks one day, and then a couple of days later, they're back, and there's more individuals, and they're doing even more malicious things. So on behalf of the business community, especially on the south of Catella right-of-way, they really appreciate the work that you and your officers have done there, especially recently. It's made a world of difference for their safety, comfort, and I think peace of mind for even the residents that live nearby. So if you please pass that on, I'd really appreciate it.
Will do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Is there any other business before the city at this time? Okay. Good night.
Recording stopped. Mr. Mayor.